Okay, welcome everyone to ANC 34G's regular meeting on the fourth Monday of June. We're glad to have all of you here. I'm Randy Speck. I'm chair of ANC 34G. I represent the single member district that is 34G03, and that's basically the area between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. And we'll begin by introducing all the other commissioners. And Peter, you want to begin first?
I'm Peter Gosselin. I represent the district that is the west side of Connecticut back to 41st from the Western Avenue border with Maryland and the Chevy Chase Circle to Military and a small peninsula to the east to Chevy Chase Parkway between Kanawha and Legation. And welcome.
Lisa?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Gore, and I represent single member District 01, which is Hawthorne and Barnaby Woods. And my SMD covers Western Avenue, Oregon Avenue, down past Pinehurst Circle to Upland, a little bit down past Tennyson, the Tributary, and back on Beach Street. Thanks. Welcome, everybody.
John?
I'm John Higgins. I am Commissioner for ANC 34G02. My district borders on Oregon on the east, Utah on the west, Military on the south, and a little bit north of Wines Road on the north. Thank you.
Connie?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Connie Chang, and I'm the Commissioner for District number 5, which is bounded by Connecticut Avenue on the east side, starting on Legation. So it covers the Chevy Chase Community Center and Chevy Chase Public Library all the way up to Western Avenue, and it cuts across to Broad Branch Road, and then it comes back down to Legation, and then there's a parcel piece that goes down to Jocelyn from Chevy Chase Parkway and Nevada Avenue. Thank you for being here.
Michael?
Hey,
Michael, we can't hear you.
there you go.
Nope, still can't hear you.
Damn technology. And then there's Michael Zeldin.
Yes. Okay, we do have 6 commissioners here tonight, although one is mute at the moment. And that is a quorum, and so we can conduct business. Commissioner Framberluti is not going to be here this evening. He's out of town. Actually having a good time, I think, with his grandchildren, which you haven't seen in a year and a half. So, yes. We're glad to have everyone here. We're going to participate in a webinar, as we have since the pandemic began. And that means that all of the commissioners will have audio and video, and we will be able to recognize and elevate others that are attendees to panelists, so that they will have audio and video as well when their time comes in the agenda. If you have not done so already, be sure that the name that is on the attendee list is proper name, so that we can identify you. If it's not your name, then please change it so that we can be sure to identify you correctly. You may use the chat and the Q&A during the meeting, so be sure to ask any questions in the Q&A, and if you've got any comments or anything else you want to be noted, you can put it into the chat. The meetings are being recorded, and they will be available on our YouTube channel beginning probably tomorrow or the next day. Okay, the first item we need to address is the agenda. The draft agenda was posted on our website, and it's been posted on the various listservs and next door. There were 2 items that have been added in the last few days because they came up after we initially posted the agenda last week. And the first is a discussion and possible vote on a letter to council members requesting a meeting to discuss data showing significant evidence of pretextual stops and racial profiling. And that we will address in the section on the report from our standing committee. The second is a presentation by Feed the Family Pantry of its application for a grant of $1,990 to purchase refrigeration equipment to support service to Regency House residents in our ANC. So with those additions, are there any other changes that need to be made to the agenda? Okay, I move that we adopt the agenda. Is there a second? All those in favor? 6-0. Okay. I have just a couple of announcements. The first is with regard to the Episcopal Children's Center. As I think we've discussed in our previous meetings, the Children's Center and Murray have entered an agreement, a lease for 50 years, where Murray will be able to use the field behind the buildings and one of the small buildings as their sports fields. And the ECC and Murray have issued a statement with regard to that. And the statement indicated that over the summer, there will be preliminary site and engineering studies as Murray prepares a plan for the fields. Murray will be meeting with the appropriate city agencies about traffic, trees, zoning, and related matters. They expect to share plans with the commission in late summer or early fall, and then submit an application to the DC's the district Board of Zoning Adjustment. That's required in order for them to be able to use the fields in the way that they're proposing to use them. Murray has said that it is committed to a transparent and open dialogue with the ANC and the community. The commission will continue to review Murray's plans as they become available and solicits any questions and comments from the community. And then separately, and following up on our June 14th meeting with DCPS Chancellor Farabee, the commission has arranged for Dr. Farabee to meet with the ECC and the commission to review the site on June 30th this week, and to explore the possibility of using the site to relieve overcrowding at Lafayette Elementary School. And Michael Zeldin, Commissioner Zeldin, is heading that effort. The second announcement I have is with regard to Beach Drive. We've had some discussions at our previous meetings about the future use of Beach Drive after the pandemic is over. Just a reminder that Congresswoman Norton and the National Park Service and DDOT will hold a virtual community meeting on the possible continued closure of Beach Drive at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. And you can register by sending an email to nortonevents@mail.house.gov. And in addition, the National Park Service, as Superintendent Washburn had announced at a previous ANC meeting, is holding a virtual public meeting on July 8th from 6 to 7:30. And we'll have a link in our minutes for where you can register for that. And they also are accepting written comments from July 8th through August 22nd. And those can be provided to their website at parkplanning.nps.gov/Beach Drive. Okay, those are the announcements I have. Other commissioners have announcements? Lisa?
Yes, Randy, you stole two of my announcements.
Sorry.
Just to remind, it's perfectly fine. Just to piggyback off of what Randy said, it's really important for those of you that will be affected by Beach Drive, regardless of where you sit on that, your opinion is, to get your comments heard at these listening sessions coming up with Eleanor Holmes Norton and the National Park Service. So please make use of those sessions to get your opinions heard. And my other announcement is for Hawthorne, Barnaby Woods residents, folks living on Western Avenue, the M4 is up and running. I've been seeing it, along its route. The E6 route is no longer functioning. The M4 has replaced it. So I just really want to highly encourage people to please use that M4 as much as you can. When we had a discussion with WMATA on trying to keep the E6 route in place, one of the things that they said was it would, ridership was an issue. So just really want to encourage folks to take that M4 as much as you can. So that's it for me, Randy. Thanks.
Okay, let's not forget the E6 too, though. We really want the E6 to come back. And as I understand it, John can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I believe the M4 is still not running to Knollwood because of Oregon Avenue.
It's not running to Knollwood because of the construction on the Oregon Avenue project. So
Right.
presumably when that project is done, the bus will be stopping somewhere close to Knollwood. But still, it's not the same as the E6. The E6 has other purposes as well.
Yeah, John and I met with Councilwoman Janice Lewis George this last week, and we emphasized to her the importance, and the people at Knollwood emphasized the importance to her of the E6, because it really is not a substitute for the M4 with the M4. The M4 is not a substitute for the E6 because it goes to Tinley and it doesn't go to Friendship Heights.
Right.
Okay. Connie, you had
Right, well, my announcement is that, the sidewalk palooza that had been taking place June 4th to June 11th across the district, District 5 continued, and we submitted about 20 311 requests. This doesn't cover the entire district yet, though. So I intend to still, over the next 2 weeks, send in more, because our sidewalks really do need attention. And it's a tragedy when someone falls and hurts themselves. So we need to prevent that from happening. If there are any sidewalks that you see as constituents of the ANC 7 districts, please let us know. That's it.
John?
I'll get with Connie later on. I do have one, and maybe we can address it later on.
Great.
Okay. Any other announcements? Okay, well, Connie, did you have something?
Do we want to mention the EPA roundtable at all, Randy, or should we? That's not a commission related, but it's commissioners, you and
Sure,
I.
go ahead.
You go ahead. You do it. You go ahead. Please.
Okay, well, on Friday, I don't know whether all of you were aware, but there was a group who have been involved in getting the lead service lines out of the district, been involved in this for 20 years and involved on the lead in drinking water issue. And they had petitioned the EPA for a community roundtable with regard to the EPA's lead and copper rule, which is being reconsidered now. There were some amendments that were proposed under the Trump administration, and now they're reconsidering those and deciding whether they need to go back and completely rewrite the lead and copper rule. The EPA had only 10 of these community roundtables around the country, and DC was selected as one of those. And Connie and I were both on the roundtable discussion, and it went, I thought, exceedingly well. The presentations by the experts in our community were really outstanding, and I think it made a distinct impression on the EPA staff who were there listening to the roundtable. So I thought it was very effective. And I mean, we emphasized throughout that what the commission has been saying about the need to remove all lead service lines at no cost to customers, so that we can address the equity issues and we can address the safety issues throughout the city. So hopefully they're going to pay attention to that, and we're looking forward to whatever action they're going to ultimately take.
Right, and the only thing I would add to that is that the EPA is the authority actually that oversees our water authority, DC Water. And the EPA has certain rules about when do you take action, and that is not the same thing as when is it unhealthy? So you take action when there's 15 parts per billion, right? And that's still lead in there. So our argument was there should be none, and we should replace all the service lines. So we've been really trying to push that through, and with the federal government's infusion of money, we're hoping that that will be applied. And so I think that was a very well done job. There are experts that have been, as Randy said, involved over 20 years, so they have a lot of experience.
Yeah, I did post in the chat in that roundtable the links to our resolutions and testimony on that topic. Peter?
Lest anybody think that this doesn't have consequences, I today signed a contract to get the lead. I'm paying for property line to house, and they're going to remove the lead from pipe to property line, and it's going to cost me more than $3,000.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's sometimes much more than that too. I've heard up to $8,000 to do it. So, Michael?
Yeah, Lisa, did you want to say anything about the op-ed?
Oh, that would be a good thing. Yes, Lisa.
Yes, I will put the op-ed in the link in the chat, but 3 ANC commissioners, we actually, they did the heavy lifting and wrote an op-ed to the Washington Post on basically supporting Vision Zero and encouraging the funding of Vision Zero and the Connecticut Avenue protected bike lanes. So it did get published. We were all very happy about that. And I'll put the link to it in a chat.
Thank you. Okay, I see that D. Smith has an announcement in the chat that all Connecticut Avenue rush hour restricted parking citations issued between June 1st and June 29th will be administratively dismissed, and there is no action required of impacted individuals. Individuals can confirm their citation has been dismissed by entering the citation number online at DMV's online ticket payment. Okay. Dee, did you have anything else you wanted to add? If so, raise your hand. She said that there are several locations on Connecticut Avenue where the rush hour restriction signs have been covered, in particular near streeteries. And beginning June 30th, all rush hour restriction parking signs are effective and enforcement will resume. So that's important to know that the enforcement is going to resume on June 30th. Okay, other community announcements. I know of a couple. Keyshawn Punta.
Two hands raised, Randy. Renee Turner, Inman. Dee has her hand up too. So.
Okay. All right. If you want to recognize them.
Dee.
Oh, I've got to give you.
Oh yeah, I don't have.
Okay, let me make you co-host. All right.
Okay.
I just say one thing. I've got to go off video for a few minutes. I'll be right back. I'll be listening, but I just can't. I won't be able to be seen.
All right.
Okay, so all hands have dropped. So I'm assuming we're good.
Is Keyshawn? I knew
Yeah.
he was there earlier, I think. Keyshawn, I know has an announcement to make.
Okay.
I don't see him there anymore, though.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, there is his hands up. Keyshawn's hands up.
Okay, hang on. Okay, bear with me. I keep hitting the chat. Keyshawn?
Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you?
Keyshawn, how are you?
Hi. I'm Kishan Putta, and I'm here to speak on behalf of DC Health Link, or the DC Health Benefit Exchange Authority. We're the Obamacare agency for the District of Columbia. I'm also an ANC commissioner a bit farther down Wisconsin from you all in Georgetown and Burleith, and appreciate all of you and you giving me a few minutes tonight. I promised my esteemed, wonderful friend Randy I would be very quick, and I will be. May I share my screen, please?
Sure.
Great. I'm trying.
Randy, you might have to promote him.
Okay, what do I need to do?
Make him a co-host.
Make a co-host? Okay.
Just temporarily, and I can relinquish.
All right.
All right, I am now sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, start your watches. We have been helping DC residents get health insurance since the Affordable Care Act passed in 2010 and we implemented in 2012. Some of you were around for that. We have actually been successful in cutting DC's uninsured rate in half. We're the second lowest uninsured rate in the country. But during this pandemic, a lot of people are having trouble. A lot of your constituents are having trouble because if you don't get insurance through your job, or even if you do and you lost your job, you're in trouble. And if you don't, and you work for yourself, it's just gotten harder and harder to afford coverage. That's where the American Rescue Plan comes in, the one that was just passed by Congress and signed by President Biden. And I'm here to tell you about some big new changes that your constituents need to know about. Here they are. There are three of them. Number one, for the rest of this year, until the fall, actually, until October, until the end of the year is number one. And that is, if you were unemployed at any time this year, received unemployment at any time this year, health insurance will be extremely cheap for you. They're subsidizing it to a very high level. Good health insurance plans for as low as $2 a month. Anyone you know who's had unemployment this year and is uninsured, they have no excuse. There's no better time. It is basically free for them to get on to get covered, and that's even if they're not getting unemployment insurance now, if they got it at any time this year, even for 1 week, they'll qualify. Don't let your constituents go without knowing about this. These premiums are low through the end of this year, so we really hope they'll take advantage of it. Big savings there. All right, so number two is big savings for people who are already getting Obamacare coverage or would like to. They have increased the discounts for health insurance premiums. They used to be after a certain income level, you would have no discounts available for you. That's now gone. Everyone can get some discounts for the rest of this year and the rest of next year. Let me give you a quick example. To all of 21 and 22. Quick example here. Someone's insurance went from went down. The same plan, their insurance went down from $200 a month to $93 a month. Here's another one. A 57-year-old paying $357. It just went down to $3. These are real DC residents. A family of four paying $1,000 per month just got cut by 75%. These are real people in DC, and don't let your constituents go without knowing about it, how much they can save if they take advantage of it. It's for the rest of this year and the rest of next year. The last one is COBRA. That's if you lost your job, but you still want to keep the coverage. You've probably heard of it. You've probably heard that it's really expensive. Right now, it is not. It is free. COBRA insurance, the same plan you had with your employer, 100% free until October. But that's still a lot of money and a lot of savings and a lot of prevented financial burdens if you can do that, if you can take advantage of it. So I'm just going to show that it's until September. It started in April. You may be able to backdate it and get your money back if you already spent it. But that is a federal program and it's not DC HealthLink, but I still wanted to make sure I told you about it. And DCHealthLink.com is our website, and we have a lot of this information on there as well. I'll put it in the chat if anyone wants to click it. I'll pause for any questions. But thank you very much for having me, everyone.
Thank you, Keyshawn. Thanks for summarizing it very quickly and thoroughly. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Any questions from commissioners or anyone else? Okay, thank you, Keyshawn.
All right, thanks. Good night, everyone.
Good night. And Hallie,
Randy, you might have to switch us.
Oh. oh, all right. I will. You should still be a co-host.
Now I am.
Okay.
Hallie, I'm getting ready to promote you.
Hello. Hi, can everyone hear me and see me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Haley Peckett. I am from DDOT. I'm the Acting Associate Director for Parking and Ground Transportation, and I want to make everybody aware of Park DC permits. This is our new digital system for digital system for visitor parking permits. So whereas in the past you will have contacted DDOT to get a paper pass, we're moving it online. I just want to share with you, there's a website, I posted the link. There's also 24/7 live phone call center, so you can also register. But basically, and just very, very quickly, how it works, you set up your account online. My account was verified in about 90 seconds, and most of that time was fishing out my driver's license. You have to have a valid driver's license. You have to live in an RPP zone. And then once you have an account, you can issue visitors, you can issue passes to visitors. Visitors do have to print their passes, or you can print the passes. And we do have printing kiosks located throughout the district, as well as public libraries. There's many different options to print. And there's lots of different options. You can have one guest that's there 24/7 for a whole year, plus an additional 2,160 hours of guests in addition to that. So it should function in terms of the number of guests and passes you have, similar to but faster than the previous paper-based system, and should really help us modernize the system, streamline the system, make approvals much easier, as well as to limit the fraud and abuse that we were seeing previously. I'd be happy to answer any questions via chat tonight, or to come back once people have had a chance to register and use the system. It is launching district-wide on Thursday, but ANC 3G should be able to register right now.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, Hallie, thank you very much. We appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is presentation and discussion with the Bethesda-Chevy Chase Rescue Squad. And Lisa, are you going to take the lead on that?
Yes, and before we do, Amir had his hand up.
Okay.
You want to
Sure.
let him? Okay.
Didn't see Amir's hand.
Yeah, it just popped up. And if everyone with Chevy Chase Rescue Squad, I see Chief Sherburne and Chris Jennison. If there's anyone else, please raise your hand so I could promote you.
Okay, Amir?
All right, good evening, everyone. Sorry to interrupt that. I just have a quick few announcements real quick. So first, I wanted to start by announcing the 4th of July parade for the Palisades. You'll have the opportunity to join the mayor and several city officials in marching through the parade. It's gonna happen this Sunday at noon. Lineup starts at 11 a.m. to join the parade. There will be t-shirts, celebratory balls and beads, and several important people. And the second thing I wanted to talk about was DMV. They're having a few updates this month, finally, next month, July. Walk-in services are going to be returning July 19th for adjudication services and July 20th for all service centers. And so with that, the appointment-only services, which we saw the last year, are going to end July 19th, meaning it's going to go back to normal how it used to be. With the exception of road tests, they always had appointments, so they're going to keep appointments. 95 M Street Southwest and the inspection station nearby are also going to have special weekend hours on the weekends of July 3rd, July 11th, and July 18th. The 95 M Street location will have hours from 8:15 a.m. to 4 p.m. and the inspection center will have 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. hours. And if anyone else does still need urgent assistance in getting an appointment before July 19th, please reach out to me directly. I'll put my contact information in the chat below. And if there's any questions, I can take them as well in the chat. But thank you.
Thank you, Amir.
Thanks, Amir. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I'm promoting Chief Sherburne.
While we're waiting, I'll note Dee's comment in the chat about the Palisades 4th of July parade. That's always a good event, and I'm sorry we couldn't have it last year. So please go if you can.
Okay, Chief Sherburne, you should be able to unmute. Yeah, oh, awesome. Thank you, sir. You're still muted, but I'll just kind of, while you get your audio.
I just, I use a variety of these different video platforms and they're all just slightly different. So,
Thank you.
okay, so let me just real quick put up the slides here. And I will just give you one disclaimer. I think when I put the slides up, I'm not going to be able to see my chat at the same time.
Okay.
So if, okay, it says host is disabled, attendee screen sharing.
Hey, you should be able to now. I think I fixed that.
Try again.
Okay, and okay, hopefully you should see a slide presentation now.
Not yet.
There.
Okay, actually, I really like this version of Zoom because actually I think I can see still. So, okay. So let me go back one slide.
And before you get started, Chief Sherburne, let me just set you up with the community. We, members of the ANC, received a letter from someone within a community. They didn't really post their contact information, but they expressed some concern about the potential that Bethesda-Chevy Chase Rescue Squad would no longer serve Chevy Chase DC. So I contacted Chief Sherburne to see if he would speak with the ANC and the community to just kind of give us an understanding of what's going on with the service. Will it be the same or will it change for us here in Chevy Chase DC? And he graciously agreed to provide us with a presentation. So that's what he's here for tonight. And I would encourage anyone in the community after his presentation, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat for him so we can get your questions answered. So with that said, Chief, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, also I would just point out also that I provided a PDF copy of the PowerPoint presentation in a slightly more wordy version, so it's intended for people that didn't see the presentation or to Lisa, and she can distribute that as you see fit. So you don't need to have a ton of notes unless you want to.
Okay.
So welcome, I'm Ned Sherburne. I'm the chief of Bethesda-Chevy Chase Rescue Squad. I've been chief for more than 25 years. I am not as old as this picture of this Cadillac ambulance, but I will say, you know, I am a child of DC. I grew up near Murray School. I went to my first movie at the Uptown Theater. My mom ran for city council against Polly Shackleton in the 1970s when in the first home rule election. And my wife loves Montgomery County. If it wasn't for that, I'd probably still, live in DC. But I am, deeply personally affiliated with the district, and I really care about what happens in DC. So, some of these things that we're going to discuss are a little bit controversial, but I just want everybody to understand. I really have the residents at heart here. So on my screen, the ANC map is cut off a little bit, but I'm hoping you all can see it. But there is a red line in the ANC screen map. I just wanted to emphasize that our current service area, as delineated in a memorandum of understanding with DC Fire and EMS, fully covers 3-4G, 3F, 3E, but it does not fully cover the ANC is closer to Georgetown, if you will. Roughly, the line for services roughly starts at the park, goes up Cathedral Avenue towards St. Albans, transects across the St. Albans complex, and then goes up New Mexico Avenue and then over to Battery Kimball Park and then back down to the river. So, and how that was designed, honestly, I don't really know, but that's loosely described in the MOA. But that service area actually predates me having joined the squad in the late 70s. So I just, like I said, I mentioned in case we have other ANCs on here that for some folks, if you live in the Normanstone, for example, or Burleaf or something, this doesn't apply. So the bottom line up front is Lisa just raised, we have been asking for a while, and it's been me driving a lot of the operational discussion. Is the current agreement between BCC and DC Fire and EMS serving the district in the best way it should, and is it something whose time has come to either end or drastically restructure? Things do change, and I can tell you about dramatic changes in DC Fire and EMS that I have seen for the positive since I have been responding with the squad. So what we have done is we've looked at a lot of internal data. Some share a little bit of that with you, including response times and call volume. I don't have the response times tonight, but I do have mileages, which we'll talk about. We've met with John Donnelly, Chief Donnelly with DC Fire and EMS twice, also with the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Chief, Scott Goldstein. And we've also had some discussions with our Montgomery County elected leader, who is Mary Che's counterpart on the other side of Western Avenue, Andrew Friedson. We have not engaged the DC elected officials yet. I'm assuming that that's going to come out of this meeting. We are hoping to make a decision and have really some more concrete information. The slide says later this summer, but we're really talking weeks, possibly months. And we have paused all of our fundraising solicitations to DC residents until we figure this out. Now, that having been said, I will tell you, and I was very irked about this, but I know that a bunch of DC residents, because a couple of our members got these solicitations, received a solicitation from the Bethesda Fire Department, which is not us, it's a different agency, within the last 10 days. I have absolutely no idea why Bethesda Fire Department solicited on the other side of Western Avenue. I just want to mention, though, because there is confusion sometimes, that was not us. We don't sanction it, and I can't speak for them. But we have not sent anything. We did send our newsletter, which does not have a fundraising ask in it, but we have not sent any real fundraising material since the end of last year. Continuing, so what happens when you call our 301-652-1000 number, our emergency number? A BCC emergency medical technician answers the phone, and our watch office determines the nature of call. They get the location from the caller, but one of the things that is really one of the issues I'm concerned about is the growing disparity between what we can offer with a 10-digit emergency number and what's available with 911. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But we do not have access to one of the services that's commonly available in a 911 center called automatic number location or automatic location identification. So we do not get your address. We get a telephone number on sort of a regular residential style caller ID. So once the dispatcher takes the information, they then dispatch an ambulance from our place. They notify the DC Office of Unified Communications, or OUC, which is, I'm sure you all know, is the combination police and fire center on King Avenue. OUC adds whatever resources they think they need to add at their discretion. Sometimes they ask us, do you think you need help? But they're in charge of it at that point. We send a basic life support ambulance. Basic life support, in contrast with paramedics. We do not dispatch paramedics in DC. We do have paramedics, but under the current memorandum of understanding, they don't go without DC authorization. And it's my experience, and I will speculate, but it's my experience that DC is not asking for them because of the current deployment that they have. They really don't need them, but I'm going to talk more about that in a second. So we send a unit, as I said, and just in case you're not familiar, the picture's small on your computer. The picture on the right shows a picture of one of our ambulances, and to the rear of it is a DC Fire and EMS medic unit. The BCC unit, if no other help goes with them, they go and they arrive and assess and treat and transport the patient. If it's a less serious emergency, if paramedics were dispatched, then our personnel work with the DC personnel. They come up with a joint plan, and they ultimately wind up transporting the patient either in the BCC unit or in the DC unit. If it's a paramedic level call, usually the transport's going to be done in the DC unit. We transport virtually to all hospitals. We don't have any restrictions between DC and Maryland. There has been some confusion about that. We are guided and directed by medical protocols. So, a trauma patient needs to go to a trauma center, stroke patient needs to go to a stroke center, and sometimes hospitals are closed because of patient loading, so we can be directed by that. But if everything is open, and I should preface that, I suppose, by the fact that during the pandemic and recently, almost all hospitals are always full. But if everything is open, we go really pretty much on patient preference unless there's some kind of medical problem or medical reason not to. So one of the things that caused us to really start asking what's happening, and I want to make sure that everybody can see the right side of this screen because it's blocked in my screen by everybody's picture. But in 2003, we were running about 1,400 calls a year. We're down now to about 381 last year. So we've had a dramatic decrease. Now there is one year if you're used to looking at statistics, you'll say, well, you had a 400 call drop in 1 year. What was that? That was because that particular year, AU decided that they were going to start calling 911 and not call us anymore. And that AU was responsible for a drop of 400 calls. But with that having been said, the rest of this decrease is really just sort of attrition over time. We don't really know why. We've done, plenty of fundraising. We've, done mailers to try and tell people about our service, yet calls are still decreasing. So one of the speculative things I believe is that some of what I'm going to talk to you about, other folks have already started recognizing and have started making their own determinations to call 911. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some concerns I have, but just, one of the big changes that DC has made, and as I said, I go back a ways, but I can go back as far as a time when after midnight, there were no ambulances west of the park north of Georgetown. That is clearly not the case now, okay? Now every Ward 3 firehouse has an ambulance in it, and they all actually have paramedic service except for Engine 28, which is at Connecticut and Porter. So we're talking about a dramatically different deployment of resources than 20 years ago when I signed the current MOA with then Chief, I believe it was Chief Lattin. In addition to that, Montgomery County has also increased the amount of resources they have, and they have added paramedics now to stations 6 and 7 and 11, which are all closer to DC than we are. So what you really get from this map here, and these maps on the side are just giving you a couple of examples, but in virtually all the cases, you wind up with us responding, say, to a call at 4901 Mass Avenue, in Spring Valley, and having to pass a couple of fire stations. A call at Sidwell Friends on Wisconsin Avenue, you pass another 4 stations. In 3G, it's not quite as bad, because there it's only 1 or 2, but we're still going, significantly farther, and that, is a current concern to me. So, why is this coming up now? Honestly, in my view, this has been a concern for a while, and I've been, baking over how to resolve this for a couple of years actually. But during the pandemic, we had a call to the area of Broad Branch and Military Road for a person who was having an acute trouble breathing episode that was a result of a congestive heart failure or emphysema. Honestly, I don't remember exactly which. And it happened right at the beginning of, in the worst period of the beginning of COVID in April. An ambulance from our place went, an ambulance from, and a paramedic unit went from DC. The care at this call was exquisite. The person, the family was very happy with the care, but there were some conversations that went on where our personnel were not as professional, I think, as they should have been. And the residents really misunderstood how things worked. And that really made me realize, and that also resulted in a letter to Mary Che's office, I believe, and a response from Chief Donnelly. And that really made me realize that we just really have to address this, because we have a changed landscape, and we have a really difficult time in communicating, what we can do, what other people can do. And it's really time to really take a look at this and ask if what worked in 1947 is working in 2021. And as the slide says here, I really am most concerned about what's effective for patients, what best serves the community, and what's a good use of resources. And I'm really having a harder and harder time to think that, we don't need to modernize this relationship and, start suggesting that all people in DC use 911. So I said I would talk a little bit about my concerns about the phones. The 911 technology, like everything else that's electronic, has made tremendous leaps and bounds, to the point where, again, the fact that we don't have some of the high-speed technology that's available in the governmental public safety answering points like BCOUC, like Montgomery County 911, is really becoming a great concern for me, because in a situation where somebody drops the phone and they can't provide an address, in a place where somebody needs a low acuity triage line and not really an ambulance, in emergency medical dispatch, which is giving pre-arrival instructions, it's very difficult for us in our type of operation to provide the level of service that's occurring in DCOUC. And that is a concern that we have to resolve. And I think, again, one of the better ways to do that may be to let 911 do its job. As I said a few minutes ago, the landscape has changed tremendously. DC now has paramedic level resources in every station except Engine 28, and they have units very close to the neighborhoods that Engine 28 serves. They have not been, our MOU or MOA does allow the use of BCC paramedic units, but it frankly just hasn't been a need. So it hasn't been exercised. And, again, that just sort of points to me to the thing that I'm not sure that, there continues to be great value in this relationship. Also, the other thing which DC has done, which has had a dramatic impact on the availability of their apparatus, is this relationship with American Medical Response, or AMR. Because AMR has taken a lot of the low acuity patients, that's leaving the DC units much more available for serious patients. So if we want to renew or revise the MOU, we have one other challenge, and that is that in about 2004, 2005, the Montgomery County Council changed the law in our jurisdiction to require that any new agreements between us and DC now require the approval of the Montgomery County Council. We have gotten preliminary signals from our supervising government officials and elected officials that there is not an appetite right now at the county council to give us a new MOA. I haven't provided them specifics, but that's a concern. I think one of the things that needs to happen, possibly in the future is a look by the elected officials and by the senior government officials about whether a more traditional mutual aid agreement should be put in place, so that when DC units are not close, you can get assistance from Montgomery County. But I just want to say, I go back to what I said before. I love DC. I would love to tell you I'm the closest station, but I'm not. And if we did that, I wouldn't be the one responding. So it just, again, the thing that really just is passing stations that have in-service apparatus is just something that is driving my core crazy. So in summary, we've been reviewing this. To be perfectly honest, I've made a recommendation to the board of directors, our board of directors, that we should look at terminating the DC MOU, because I think that the capabilities of DC now have improved to the point where I think we're hampering responses and not helping. But that is still a recommendation at this point. But I go back to the distance of and availability of BLS and ALS resources has improved dramatically. And I just don't think that we are needed any longer. And as I said earlier, maybe hampering things. I'm real concerned about 911 capabilities. And if that's something that we have to put oodles of money into, and I'm not sure that even solves the problem, because you have to meet very specific criteria in order to be a 911 recipient of calls. So that really is not something that's an option. I think we're really at a point where, my bottom line is that, this was a great idea for many years, but I think we need to look at the times and say, maybe it's time to end this relationship. And again, it doesn't give me any, other than the fact that I think it's the right thing to do. It really disturbs me. I have to make this recommendation, but I owe you my best advice as a longtime public safety official. And, that's kind of where I am. So I think, And the one other thing I just want to mention is we are not planning on cutting off service, without a lot of notice. So if somebody calls today, I know we ran 2 calls yesterday at Army Distaff. Those calls will continue to go. We're not going to make any changes without a lot of public notice, but that's pretty much where our organization stands right now. So I guess with that, I will open it up for questions, and I hope I didn't run too much over my time.
No, you did great. And right, Peter, I see your hand is up, but let me just thank Chief Sherburne. That is I had no idea that you were going to give us that presentation with that recommendation at the end. So I really, really want to thank you. And I know how tough these decisions is. I mean, this is a case of, changing business operations 101. So it's a really kind of a textbook example. And these type of decisions are really hard when you're impacting the community. But I definitely want to thank you for your transparency and being upfront with the community on how we got to this point. One question I want to ask you before I pass it on to Commissioner Gosselin, is there any room in the MOA to still allow for service in the event that DC or AMR are at capacity? So you think of like maybe an event like we had on January 6th, where maybe units are deployed, or, something that we're seeing, like in Florida where units are deployed. Is there any room of negotiation for that, where the Chevy Chase could still be used at some capacity?
So let me speak on Montgomery County is a very integrated system with career and volunteer personnel. So let me just speak for a second. If I can take a little editorial license to speak on behalf of the fire chief, the county fire chief. There is an existing mutual aid agreement between the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments that allows DC Fire and EMS Communications or other authorities to call and ask for help. And that's commonly what's referred to as mutual aid. There's also a more aggressive type of assistance called automatic aid, which is what's done between Montgomery County and Prince George's County and Fairfax County, where their computer-aided dispatch systems and ours automatically dispatch each other. So we do not have automatic aid with DC, but we do have mutual aid. So in any case where they feel overwhelmed, certainly they had units down there for the Capitol fiasco. Another case that comes to mind is, and I want to say this was probably 10 or 15 years ago, there was a parking garage collapse at the Watergate. That brought units into the city, and we are fully integrated. All Montgomery County units are fully integrated. So, post from the Air Florida crash, and I know I'm dating myself here, but from the Air Florida crash a long time ago, a communications plan is developed where all local government fire and rescue agencies have their own channels or have each other's channels. So, if DC asks for help, we can come up on DC channels or vice versa. So, there is that type of mutual aid already in place for large scale emergencies. It's just, that's different than the automatic aid.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
Let me start by echoing Commissioner Gore's thanks to you for being frank. My thinking on this starts with the fact that whether you have an acute medical emergency on the north side of Western Avenue or on our side, it's an acute medical emergency, and we want the best coverage we can get. I'm not clear and you could help me in understanding this. It sounds to me, my gut tells me that you've been a good soldier in this presentation, Chief, and you said DC has improved a lot and has devoted resources, and that's changed the landscape. But it sounds as if many of your problems are ones of being denied access to technology that DC could make available to you. I have to say, in the spirit of full disclosure, I was a very close friend of a New York Times reporter, David Rosenbaum, who was mugged in 2006, not picked up by your rescue squad, but by EMS. And it took him 40 minutes, not to take him to a nearby hospital, but across the park to Howard. And he died. And so one of the things that I wonder about is the quality of response, not just response time, not, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on what's happened to quality, but I do think that the ideal for our constituents would be a full relationship such that if you can get there first, you have automatic, whatever you call it, automated, an automated relationship to the emergency call network and could respond. Because people, and if you're right about the improvements in DC could offer to nearby Montgomery County residents a similar service.
So let me be clear. I'm putting back on my hat as BCC because in terms of the relationship, in terms of mutual aid and how Chief Goldstein and Chief Donnelly feel about a governmental level mutual aid agreement, I don't want to speak to that. That's for them to discuss. Although, you know, as a border department, I would love to help them facilitate that, but that's for them to decide. And I am a long enough tenure of this office to be intimately familiar with the Rosenbaum case. Although I'll be honest with you, I haven't read the report for quite some time, but I was very familiar with that. I think there are a couple of things that we have to look for. One is one of the reasons why fire and rescue agencies, why we want to avoid duplication and we want to avoid the who gets there first thing, is because that can create a lot of negative activity in terms of encouraging people to drive too fast, in terms of duplication of response. And then if one of the duplicated units gets involved in an accident, and people are injured, you had an extra unit on the road that didn't need to be there. I'm certainly not gonna, I certainly have tremendous belief in the competence and the compassion and the quality of care that we offer. That having been said, if my parents still lived, and both of them have passed away now, but if my parents still lived in 3C008 off Cleveland Avenue, I would definitely want engine 21 from Lanier Place or engine 28 from Porter Street to get there 5, 6, 7 minutes ahead of a BCC unit if there was epinephrine involved for an allergic reaction.
Okay, but just let me ask you this, Chief. In a perfect world, which this is not, we all agree, in a perfect world, what is the system that you would like to see in place? You've talked a lot about declining calls and improved service by EMS, but if there was a seamless communication system across this border, would that not be the best solution in terms of not in terms of you, but in terms of our constituents? Would they not be best served by that?
I think in general, from a national perspective, it would be generally acknowledged by most fire officials that automatic aid based on mileage or response time calculation. And when I say that, now the computers are sophisticated enough that they can take mileage and apply speed limits to calculate approximate travel time. So, a call that or a unit that's traveling down an interstate highway might be slightly closer than a unit that's traveling down a residential street. But in general, I would say automatic aid is something that we want to strive for. But there's a lot of nuances involved in that. And when you look at my presentation, the detailed one I gave to Commissioner Gore has some more detailed mileages in it. And you'll see that along Western Avenue, there's a lot of duplication of resources by the fact that the mileage quotients are very similar. So, and I might add that this really, could be applied to fire as well. It's not just EMS. That the mileage quotients are very similar. So, on the first response, it may not make a difference, but it does make a difference when there's another call going on, probably.
I think that was a yes. In a perfect world, I mean, I don't mean to put words in, but
Yeah.
in the perfect world, you'd have an integrated automated system, and you could respond if you could do the best, and DCEMS could respond if they could do the best, and our constituents would be best served by that. And perhaps Montgomery County's borderline people along the border would be best served by that. Is that not a doable? Is that just pie in the sky?
Honestly, that's kind of above my pay grade in this day and order, or Dan, because I'm a department chief level in Montgomery County, but that's really an elected and governmental leader kind of conversation. But I think automatic aid would be a place to get to, but I'm not at a point where I can offer that or give you exactly how doable that is. I would also just add, though, if that were done, that would be, from our side, that would be a Montgomery County response, because BCC, unless we move or build a new station somewhere, we would not be the first response to DC. It would come from the 3 stations that are closer.
But this is a relationship that we really want to have with along this border, yes?
I mean, I think automatic aid is something that's desirable, yes.
Okay. I mean, I just say to my fellow commissioners, this seems like particularly with the aging population on this side, this seems like an important cause for us. So I don't mean to flog it now, but I mean, it does seem to me to be something that is a good for our constituents that we might work towards.
Yeah, and you might also want to think about having Chief Donnelly to a future meeting.
Right.
Exactly. I'm not trying to be a commercial for him. He's a very effective advocate of his own. But I just, I have to, I really feel like I owe you a duty to be honest about this, and that's what we're doing.
You've been incredibly frank. I appreciate it. It's the end of my.
2 other commissioner questions, and I know there's 1 community member question. Connie, I know you have your hand up, but John actually had his hand up first, so I'm gonna go to John, then Connie.
First of all, I really would like to thank you for the presentation and being so candid with us. Secondly, my wife and I our family has been district residents for nearly 50 years, and we've had service by your service, and we are very happy to have it. I am now wearing 2 hats. I'm a commissioner, and about 20 months ago, we moved from our longtime DC home to Army Distaff to Knollwood, which and I'm also on the board of the Residents Council here at Knollwood. And the council has been very supportive of BCC Rescue over the years. I guess a couple of years ago, we had a little bit of a dip in our finances, but that's been revived. And you are our #1 recipient of our fundraising here from the council. And so I think we revived that this year, and we'd like to make it more, and we're going to continue to strive to make it more. And our residents even supplement that with individual donations. I think that's just an expression of how valued you folks are in our neighborhood. A couple of questions here, just based on your experience, and this is very narrow and very personal, I guess, is in terms of the volume of activity generated by ADF, can DC handle that by themselves, do you think, without supplementary service from your organization?
The short answer is yes, because we know that we only ran 131 calls last year in the district, and that's not much for their volume. I will just say just one personal note. My grandmother used to live at Army Distaff, and I'm very familiar with the older building. If you look at the main driveway, she lived in the individual living units up to the left there. If you look at the older building, but I think that and I was actually down there yesterday with a call. So I know at Distaff, one of the concerns that residents have is that DC does not like going to Walter Reed Navy Complex, you know, and that's something that I would be happy to work with you guys to advocate with Chief Donnelly to see if we can get that changed, because from a mileage standpoint, it's actually the closest hospital. Now that may change a little bit right now with all that mess on Oregon Avenue, but when Oregon Avenue reopens, Navy is actually, or Walter Reed is actually very close to Distaff. But yes, they can, I mean, 100 calls a year, that's very few.
Another,
Excuse me, 300 calls a year, excuse me, 300. I misspoke.
yeah, you mentioned the fact that DC could get here or get to places in DC faster than your units could get to them. That certainly is one question, but the other question is getting any service at all. What if a DC unit is in operation in Burleith or someplace and they get a call in Chevy or Chevy Chase and the coverage in DC has to come from further away? Couldn't your organization supplement that? What's the, and is there a possibility of any kind of a technical handoff? Somebody calls 911 in the district, but an ambulance is not available at that time within that space. Can they relay that or hand it off to your organization?
So, I mean, they would be able to, if they wanted to, they would be able to hand it off to Montgomery County 911, who could then send the closest Montgomery County resource, which might or might not be us. The one thing I'll note is DC and Montgomery County both have gone to a paramedic engine concept where paramedics are delivered both in some cases by ambulances, but in some cases by engines. And that has changed something dramatically, and that is that the engines, which are less busy, are able to get the calls closer, start care, and then an ambulance shows up at a slightly later time, you know, within a couple of minutes, but care is already underway. So I mean, you know, any, you know, large scale emergency certainly can deplete resources, but you know, the normal everyday, you know, call load, you know, I think you're relatively well protected, but Montgomery County, if DC were to ask, Montgomery County, you know, is, you know, would be able to send the next closest resource if it was asked.
Okay, thank you very much.
Connie, then Michael.
Again, from myself, thank you so much, Chief Sherburne, for your presentation. It was very thorough. My question has to do with that chart that you showed us with the declining calls over 20 years. I'd like to know if you collect data on donations that were made from DC residents and perhaps just wards, the ANC, 3G, 3E, 3F, if you collect that, and if you know whether or not those donations also had that downward trend or not. Because you said you didn't know why the calls went down. It could be that there was no demand. It could be that you don't track other data where other people may have called 911 instead. But in terms of interest in your service, tracking donations is another way to get at that.
Yes, that is true. Donations are off slightly. They're not off to the same degree as calls. One of the challenges we have with DC donations, though, is that a number of foundations and individuals have offices in DC, and they sometimes donate from their offices. So we're not always 100% sure. But if you track the small, you know, the average donations, they're off, and honestly, I have those numbers. I just have them off the top of my head, but it's not the same degree as the calls. And we certainly know that this is going to have and it's one of the more difficult parts about this decision is you know, reconciling how this is going to impact us financially. But I have sold the board on the fact that this can't be a financial decision. You know, unfortunately, you know, and we do have the ability to, you know, take some or get more involved in the county funding of our resources, to make gaps up. But, but it's an operational issue, and we can't have this solely be based on donations, other than the fact that we want to absolutely make sure that we don't, solicit donations and then, leave the next day kind of thing. That certainly wouldn't be ethical, but, after a period of time and fair notice, this can't be about donations.
Right, but my.
Actually, my treasurer is on the call.
Right, so it hasn't dipped that much. The impetus of my question is not about your revenue intake. The impetus of my question is about the demand for your services.
Right. Okay.
And the demand for your services can be tracked by the donations and how steady that's been. Whether or not people call you, it could be that they just haven't called you because they haven't needed to call you. And that's hard to know. Maybe you're able to track that. I don't know. People are not calling you directly. So I guess my follow-up question is, when 911 is called, does the dispatcher then dispatch to you or not? I wasn't clear in listening. They have to call your number directly, correct?
Yes,
to get your service. Okay.
We do not get calls from DC 911 under the current system.
Okay, so they call you, and they haven't called the call numbers have gone down, but the donations have remained sort of steady. That number is not that different. It's a dip.
But one of the perplexing issues that I have really been asking myself for a while is, so those donations could be made as if this were an insurance policy, right? And people are making them because you want to have the resource there, when it is available. The concern that I have, and this is more a nuanced argument, but the concern that I have is that this is a very complex system. There's a lot of different variables in play at any one time. And it is very difficult for me to educate everybody on exactly what they need to know to be a completely informed consumer. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that concerns me and would concern me if my parents were still here, and I really do make my decisions based on, how would I treat family, is, would they have what would I want them to do? And would they have the information they would need to decide at the time, if my mother was there and my father suffered an episode of unconsciousness, would she have the information available she would need right now to decide, should she call 301-652-1000 or should she call 911? And I think the reality is that the systems have evolved, that we have to put trust in 911 because most people don't have that, that information. And, we have probably about 20 or 25 members that are Ward 3 residents right now. It might be more than that, but about those number I can think off the top of my head. And the discussion I've had with some of them is, you as an individual, as a BCC rescue squad member, probably can make that decision, but everybody else doesn't know that. And I go back to the fact that I think we've evolved to a point where we have to put trust in 911.
Yeah, but wait, just so I
Peter, sorry to interrupt you. Guys, Michael is next, and then we still have a community member, and we really got to move on with the topic. So I want to go to Michael, and then, if you guys don't have anything, really, really urgent, I would like to get the community conversation in here.
Good.
So Chief, thank you. We've donated to you forever. We've lived in the district. I've lived in the district since 1969. We've never called you once. We've never needed to call you once, nor have we ever called 911. But I do know that where I live on Tennyson Street, if I were to have an emergency and I dial 911 from my DC house, it goes to Montgomery County. If I dial 311 from my DC house, it goes to Montgomery County. I cannot call DC 911 from my cell phone. It will not go there. So I'm not sure that you've contemplated the possibility that people can't get through to DC 911 from different parts of Chevy Chase.
So that, I wish I had a communications expert on the call with us today. I know that they have procedures for that. That is a problem that does occur. And we have also had situations where our 301-652-1000 number has also been called by people in Montgomery County when 911 went down. It's very rare, but occasionally it happens. I would say to you and anybody else who thinks that that may be occurring, it is very important. And the same thing can also happen the other way, because there was a case about 20 years ago now in Somerset, on the tennis courts in Somerset, which, you know, is right at Dorset Avenue in Wisconsin, just past Saks Fifth Avenue, the little neighborhood back there, where a person suffered a cardiac arrest and the phone voted to DC, not to Montgomery County. And sort of that same situation played out backwards. So it's very important that you tell the 911 dispatcher, you know, what jurisdiction you're in if you think you might be in a situation where that's occurring, because they do have procedures to rapidly get you to the, you know, to the proper jurisdiction if they know where it is. Where the real problem comes up, and also the other thing I can tell you is that Montgomery County does populate in their computer-aided dispatch the close-in addresses along Western Avenue. So if you call and you say you're at 2934 Tennyson Street Northwest, and that the dispatcher is going to be able to key that in, and it's going to tell them it's in DC. So that there are procedures in place for that.
But you lose time.
I'm sorry?
But you lose time.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying is, if in your business, expertise plus time is the greatest likelihood of success in an emergency, why would you recommend a system that adds time when the infrastructure is not yet ready to accept it?
Because I think it in the rare one-off situation, it adds time, but in the or may potentially, I'm not willing to necessarily say that all of those would be poorly handled, but in a rare situation, it may add time, but in the vast majority of calls, which are managed correctly, it's going to subtract time. But I agree with you 100% about your analysis of competence plus time. I think that's a very accurate assessment.
Yeah, I'm just worried that the recommendation to not serve this community when you are as close to it as any emergency response unit is not in the best interests of the community, without regard to whether it's on one side or of the other of Western Avenue.
Renee Turner Inman, did you still want to ask a question of the chief?
But thank you for everything.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi. Hi, thank you, Chief. That was a very good presentation. When I dial 911 from my home, I also get Montgomery County, and I live very close to Western Avenue. But my question is, have you received pushback from an entity in DC, or are you just starting this process and just providing information?
We are, I'm sorry, did you say, did we receive pushback from somebody? Was that?
Yes. Are you receiving pushback from an entity in DC, or are you just starting the process?
No, this is internally driven, based on our concern that we want to make sure that we're, you know, providing the level of quality of care that people think that we are. And we're just real concerned that distance and traffic, and I haven't really even talked about that, but, you know, I hadn't been down Tennyson Street in probably 2 or 3 years. And I noticed that there are some killer speed bumps now in between Western Avenue and Distaff. And the size of those speed bumps, that does slow down response considerably.
Mm.
So, you know, all those type of things are things that are part of this equation.
Okay. Thank you.
You'll be happy to know that the speed bumps on Tennyson Street are to DC spec. They've been, the old one has been removed and replaced, and our speed bumps in the District of Columbia are lower than they are in Montgomery County.
I've
So that can't be the answer, Chief.
I've
It's
spoken
a
on speed humps many times, and my position is they do slow response, but it's a community decision, because if they prevent a child from being struck, that may be a greater value. But we just have to assess them realistically for what they do to response.
All right.
Thank you
Commissioners,
so much.
thank you so much for all your
Thank you,
questions,
Chief.
community members, and Chief Sherburne, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time on this.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm happy to, you know, speak again, and I apologize for monopolizing so much time, but I do think it's probably an important issue.
I agree, definitely. And I'll have your presentation posted on the ANC website so everybody could have access to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, before we go ahead with the agenda, I'm going to make a suggestion that we delete one item from the agenda because we're way behind right now, that we postpone until our next meeting, the discussion of future ANC meetings. That we don't need to do that tonight. And otherwise, we're going to have people who are waiting. I know there are people who waiting for the discussion about the DPR program arrangements and for Chestnut Street sidewalks. And, you know, I don't want to keep them waiting.
Can we move them up? Can we move them up?
I would be happy to do that.
Let's do that.
Okay. Chestnut Street sidewalks next. Lisa, is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that.
Okay, everyone from DDOT that needs to be promoted for this presentation, please raise your hand. We actually did have quite a few drop off after the chief, so it looks like a lot of people were on the call for that as well.
Mhm.
Okay, so Samir,
Yes, give me
who
one
is
second.
SM? Can you please rename yourself? Oh,
Syra Molina.
sorry. Can you please rename yourself so people know who you are?
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone else from DDOT that should be on?
I think just, yeah, I think it's us. We're fine.
Gotcha. Okay, so we are really excited to hear you all.
Okay, thank you.
So just to kind of set you guys up as well, Chestnut Street Sidewalk Project has been ongoing for a long time. You guys are here to give us an update on where we are. I think the last we heard was that the construction contract had been awarded and we were waiting on, okay, Jim, I see you. Waiting on a date to actually start construction. Do you want to take it from there? Samir,
Yeah, sure, no problem. I have to share my screen. I have some to share. Thank you, everyone. This is Samer Al-Hawamde. I was the project manager for the design phase, and now I'm taking over to do the construction phase. So I'll be handling the project. So I'm just share something on screen. Give me 1 second. I can't share.
You have to be.
Andy has to promote him.
Hold on.
Okay, thanks. Oh, it's still not working. Yeah, now I can. Thanks. Sure. Give me 1 second, something is not working here. So briefly, I'm giving an update for Chestnut Street for the construction phase. So we are now at the pre-construction phase. That's the status of the project now. So I'm going to give like a quick project update for the schedule and then talk about the construction phase and we'll talk in details. So currently the pre-construction started in April 2021. So that's when we got a letter for the contract. So during that phase, we started doing some pre-constructions like prep. For example, we like order materials and equipment, which now we are like in process and do some like submission between the contractor and DDOT to approve the material need to be like used for Chestnut Street. And second part will be the community engagement and outreach. And I'm sure you guys been receiving the flyers that Jam distribute last week. So that's talking about the project. And we mentioned we come into this meeting and also looking to host a our own public meeting to talk about in details. But we thought we jump to this meeting just to be like more ahead of time and just give you some like updated information. And we're gonna follow up with a public meeting, more detailed information about the project. So the next timeline for the schedule will be the construction will start July 19th. That's the date. Will be like more like notice to proceed, and we'll start mobilization to the site July 19th. That will be the date. So you'll see our crew on Chestnut Street on July 19th. So which the time all the material and equipment been received. So we are in the process for them to mobilize to Chestnut. And also now we're in the process to get the office field as well be on site. So that will be will be like close to Chestnut or around the area just to be close to the project for any like inquiry, any question during the construction phase. And the construction will be 4-month period. So if we start on July 19th, we're looking to finish in October 2021, maybe November 2021. It depends on the schedule, but our target will be October. So based on the schedule what I'm seeing here, I'm explaining, did the evaluation, that means we could finish in October. Then we come and we do our own evaluation, make sure it's on the punch list and all that information once the project complete. And then at the end of November will be the closing out the project. So I mean, will be completed. So I'm sure a lot of people want to know about what the phases and how we're going to start and what will be the end. So we'll be starting from phase 1 will be from Oregon Avenue to 32nd Street. And then we'll be moving, phase 2 will be from 32nd Street to Greenville Street. And then phase 3 from Greenville Street to 33rd Street. And we finish up at 33 Road, 8th Street to Western Avenue. So each phase will be about like 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll talk more in detail when we get our understanding the work. And the reason we start from Oregon because we'll be more like doing that laying concrete and not more structures. So that's why we start from Oregon to expedite the schedule to be finishing on time. And here in this picture, I'm showing the main 3 intersection, which is Chestnut Street with 32nd and Greenville Street and 33rd Street with Chestnut Street. And that's that total the budget construction budget, and it's locally funded. It's $1 million, about $1 million for the whole project to finish the sidewalk and adding all the feature and measurement we need for this project. Let me show you another. So here, I'm not sure if people seen this layout. That's for the project, showing the layout for each house and each improvement we're doing of Chestnut. So as I said, we start from Oregon. I'm moving down to, let me zoom out so I can show you the legend here, so you can see what's going on here. So that's showing all Chestnut Street from Oregon to 32nd Street. That's the first phase. And be showing like we can plant new trees. This symbols mean we're adding new trees on the street, and also those all the driveways. And each driveway, as we said before, we're going to be like paved based on the existing driveway, so it will be matching for each driveways. So wherever each driveway is will be the same materials, and also a sidewalk and access for the houses as well. So that's what for phase 1, and this will be phase 2. So like I said, we'll be adding a raised crosswalk along 32nd Street, and also we add an island just to reduce traffic, and also always stop sign on 32nd Street. And that will be phase 2, all the way to Greenville Street. And this one will involve more like adding more upgraded structures, like catch basins, which is on the intersection. Those will be like upgraded, we're replacing new ones. And same thing with driveways. And the next phase will be phase 3, will be from Greenville to 32nd Street. Same thing, we're adding raised crosswalk, stop sign control, always stop sign control here, and raise crosswalk as well on 33rd Street. And also we did some improvement. We bring the stop sign more close to intersection, so to improve the side distance coming from 33rd Street, so it become more visible for vehicle leaving 33rd Street to Chestnut. And like I said here, all these new trees will be planted part of the project, and upgrade all the structures. And that's in the project. Here will be Western Avenue, same thing. We will have raised crosswalk as well here, and like I said earlier, and that's the project. So the date is July 19th. If you would like to understand, it will be on site July 19th. And also it'll be next week, I think July 7th, do like a walkthrough, me and my crew, just to inspect before we start construction. I'll be there on July 7th, just a quick walkthrough on site. Thank you.
I didn't want to interrupt you. Are you still presenting? Or were you wrapping up your presentation?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. When is the community outreach date?
We still, do you mean the public meeting?
Yes.
We still have to discuss it, but we think before July 19th possible. So that's the plan. So we'll still discuss internally to decide what's the exact date. It will be like around the time we receive the NTP, which is July 19th, around that time.
And is that going to be virtual, I'm assuming?
Yes.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you, there are a lot of different, residents that have concern and some stake in this besides just the ones on Chestnut Street. Is there any outreach to the outside streets like 33rd, 32nd, to let them know that this construction and this project is going to be done? Or are you guys just sending direct information to the residents on Chestnut Street?
Directly we send them on Chestnut Street, and maybe we send some for like an off-road as well. We can send those as well, because they will be impacted. For example, if we're adding like we can impact adding sidewalk here and a crosswalk, so they might be impacted. So we'll send to them as well what's going on Chestnut, because Chestnut is a collector street, and I'm sure a lot of residents in the neighborhood they use it. So we can like distribute information for residents who doesn't live on Chestnut as well.
Yeah, I'm right off of 31st, which is, right off of that first, going to be impacted by that first section. And I've had constituents that have contacted me, definitely some on 32nd Street, that are really concerned about this project. And I really want to advocate for including them, these side streets, to receive the information and to be in attendance at the public meeting. It definitely impacts Chestnut the most, but there's some construction on some of these side streets and they have some concerns about that. One of the things that's going to come up is, the heavy trucks, if they're staying to, if they're not staying to the traffic plan, how do residents raise that? And I also kind of want to know if you could let us know how are they, and maybe these are things you'll discuss in that public meeting, but how are they supposed to communicate with DDOT and get quick responses and action on issues that are occurring, like if you see heavy trucks on the side streets not adhering to the traffic plan?
Actually, we can discuss those like I said in public meetings. So that's still open discussion how we gonna like communicate with the communities. Also, like I said earlier, we will be on site all day long. So we have our actually our office field will be on site, so we could listen to this all concern on a regular day basis, and also our team will be there, and also Jam from the outreach team. She will be the outreach person for our team to respond to answer all this question concern for all the community. And also when we send the flyer last week, we include my email and Jam's email as well, just to receive or any questions or concern.
Okay, can you send me a copy of that flyer so I could distribute that a little bit more widely to the community?
Oh yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, and what is going to happen with the M4 bus that's now coming up Chestnut Street? How is that going to be impacted?
We still coordinating with the WMATA, so we'll see how we could do that or out their bus route. I think we're not being impacted much because we go on only closing on the parking lane, so that the two travel lane will be still operating during constructions. So during the MOT plan, we'll provide access for the bus and access for pedestrians during construction. So we're not closing any lanes or deferring traffic. So everything will be work fine because, as you know, Chestnut is very wide street, so we're not gonna be like close or any like impact any operations. But we just need to coordinate with Mata to let them know the project is coming, just to make sure to be prepared about the project. But the operation will stay the same.
Sorry, if I could just add, Commissioner
Yes.
Gore, we did reach out to the side streets and provided the flyer to the side streets as well. And we've been in communications with them in regards to this project, because we do understand they are being impacted in some ways as well. So we have been doing that communication, and we've also already sent you an email with the flyer that we sent out. It came from an email under Peyton, but if you have not received it or seen it, we're happy to re-forward you that email.
Okay, what, do you know when you sent it? Definitely didn't see it today.
I believe it was today before the meeting.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks. Any other commissioners have questions? It's hard for me to see. John?
Yeah, I gather there's not going to be any bioretention cells. This is just sidewalks.
No, we didn't have any bioretention because what we're doing is just extending the sidewalk to the street. So we're not impacted or disturbing any of the green land. So it's already paved. So we're not gonna have any like bioretentions on Chestnut.
Okay. One question not related to Chestnut is I have a constituent who has a very significant sidewalk problem, which has been pending, well, hasn't even been pending, it just hasn't even been tended to in 3 years. Can I send some information to you to help wrap that up, or to Jam, or who can we go to get this?
I think I have Sarah from the community engagement team. I think she's the one she could direct that question, or I could do it. I could do it as well if you want to.
No worries, Summer. I can.
You can do it. Okay. Thanks,
yes.
Sarah.
Any community, any questions outside of Chestnut that cannot be attended to today can be forwarded to the community engagement team. I cover Ward 4 and Donese. Jackson covers Ward 3. So you can, the commissioners or residents can send that information to us, and I'm happy to drop our contact information on the chat. Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions? Jam, did you want to add anything?
Hi, you know what? Thank you for having me on. Sarah, I think, answered all of the questions and comments that I wanted to bring. I got kicked off from my computer and had to log back on my iPad. So I was in the midst of catching up. So I think she's covered everything.
Okay. If anyone in the community has a question, please raise your hand. I know there is a comment in the chat, and Lucinda, I'm gonna promote you and you can ask that directly.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. So my question is just specific to Chestnut and 33rd. There's going to be some new stop sign signage there. Right now, it's only a stop sign on 33rd. So will you guys have something else along the street just so drivers can get accustomed to the new, I would say, like three-way stop sign that's going to be at that intersection?
Actually, because the sidewalk will be into the road, so the width will be like thinner than before. Now it's like it's very wide, so that will be we call like a road diet. So when the sidewalk get into the street, so we'll force the car to slow down, and that's what one of the major thing adding the sidewalk. It's to slow down the traffic as well. And we could have a warning sign. That's something we could evaluate after budget complete, see how we could do it. But if you look, there's Street and Western, they are very close. So if we could coming from Western to Chestnut, I think they have enough like time to slow down to see the stop sign. So we'll not, you see how close they are.
I do.
Will not be,
It's more so the other direction, and I see it because I live right at that intersection. Because it's such a long stretch, drivers are very fast, and I do hope and believe that with the sidewalk that will slow down the traffic. But it is a new traffic. It is a new signage or traffic requirement. So that's why I'm wondering if that's something you guys can take note of and then consider evaluating that as you get closer to project complete to see if you need to add something so drivers can get accustomed to that. That will be great. If you could just, again, take note of that and reevaluate that.
And actually this one is just like a rendering, it's not the actual plans. So on the plans, there is some signage like for warning, for stop sign warning. So we'll probably have, if we didn't have it, we definitely will add it as like improve the safety on Chestnut. So something we could add. It's not like a big deal, we could add it, no problem.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, no problem.
There's also one question in the Q&A. Can you see that, Samir? Are the islands just painted on, or is there a physical island? Also, for the accessible ramps, I would like to see DDOT stop making ramps that in some cases have a very short curb in the middle. In other cities, a ramp would not be broken up like that. Can you address that?
I'm sorry, what's the question again? I'm sorry. Let me see the question.
So first part of the question is, are there islands? Are the islands just painted on, or is there going to be a physical structure, a physical island?
No, it's going to be a physical structure. That will be a physical structure. Concrete for both sides will be physical structures on 32nd Street.
But not throughout I'm sorry, not throughout Chestnut. It's just the at the intersections, correct, Summer?
Yeah, we're only this section, not through Chestnut Street, only on at the intersections. That's it.
The rest we're making improvements to market.
Okay. And then for the accessible ramps, the question is, I would like to see DDOT stop making ramps that in some cases have a very short curb in the middle of them. Can you address the accessible ramps?
Well, typically those ramps come like it's based like our design manual. So we follow the guidelines of the design manual for DDOT. So if we have a special revision that have to come during the design phase, so whatever is designed, that will be built for this project. So and actually we brought this up in the design phase. So I think wherever is going to be built, that will be what we follow our guidelines for all the district. So I've been
issues in the past with the accessible ramps.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
Have there been past issues regarding the accessible ramps in that curb space?
No.
So all of our designs are reviewed by our ADA compliance team to make sure that they meet standard. And so this project is no different than any other project that we do across the city. And so these have been reviewed by our ADA team, and they do meet the our standard requirements. I'm happy to forward you our regulations and requirements under our standard design manual book that is public for all to see, for a public to see and view. So I'm happy to forward that information to you as well.
And just to follow up on that community member's question, can you answer this, Samir? Why have physical islands?
We had a physical island just to slow traffic at Chestnut Street. That's the reason the island is made for. Just when you get approach the intersection, force the car to slow down at the intersection. So we thought about to have a pullback, and they said the island will be more better for vehicle turning to 32nd Street or going straight, but also will force the car to slow down coming from Oregon. Especially, I think 32nd Street is downhill, so car will speed. So we thought the best solution to have the island just to slow down, and also physical structure will warn the driver there is intersection coming up, so the driver will slow down and see the stop sign, so we'll slow down.
Yeah, in this section of roadway, there's been a lot of community outpouring in terms of traffic calming. So that's definitely a traffic calming measure. That Chestnut Street is like a freeway. Sometimes people do a lot of speeding up and down that street. And one question I have for you, this will be my last one. And I might have asked you this before, but at 32nd and Chestnut, the intersection, there's not going to be a crosswalk going across Chestnut Street coming up 32nd on the opposite side?
Yeah, you asked me that question last meeting, I think. And the reason why we didn't have it, because we didn't have no sidewalk on the other side or a ramp to build, like, because we only have a sidewalk only on one side. So if you go into cross, there is no landing here for pedestrian. So that's why we have only on one side.
I'm just going to say, I'm just really concerned about that. And it always catches my eye because I come up 32nd, down 32nd, and sometimes I go beach up to 32nd. And you're dodging, and you know, it's just not if everybody's paying attention, it's okay. But I mean, you know, people come through that stop sign pretty quick. And there's a lot of pedestrian traffic that cross over Chestnut from 32nd Street because they're coming up off the park, or crossing the kids crossing through the tributary coming up to that side of Hawthorne. I would love to see a crosswalk right there.
I don't know. We could look into it.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. We understand that request. Going back to what I had previously stated, which is, you know, all of our recommendations and designs are approved through our ADA team, right? And so we come into a conflict when if we install a new crosswalk and there's no ADA access for someone crossing that street and for them to access the other side, then we're not in compliance, right? And so as Summer had noted, for us to install a crosswalk there, we would need to have that compliance where if someone with a disability were to cross, it had to be ADA compliance, and they would have to access a sidewalk or somewhere to take them to their next location from point A to point B. And so we do understand that unfortunately under this design, under this project, we are not implementing that. But we do take that feedback back to our safety team for future perhaps considerations.
Okay, I definitely understand that. I'm just making a point that there's a lot of foot traffic that cross there. And yes, please take that back to the safety team. Because right now, people with disabilities or that need ADA compliance really don't have anything that's protecting them crossing that street. So that's a safety issue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Any more questions? Community or commissioners?
I
Could you just move, first, let me understand, the red dots are stop signs, yes?
Yes, those here, yes, stop sign.
Just move back to the slide for the intersection of 33rd and Chestnut.
Okay.
So I'm just curious, following on to Lucinda Wade's question. Yeah, there. So the red dot at the bottom of the screen is a stop sign facing, let's see, what are my directions? This is, what direction is it?
You're going east.
East, okay. So why is it, if I understood her question correctly, she's concerned about a long stretch coming east to west. Why is there not a stop sign in the other direction?
I mean, here, where's the stop? There's a stop sign here.
There's a stop sign there.
Where?
Right here.
But that's coming off of 33rd. The question.
No, there's 33 here, coming from 33 here. That's coming from Chestnut west. This one east, and this one going west.
Which one going west?
Okay, this stop sign, it's
that's
here.
not 33rd Street stop sign?
No, that's on Chestnut Street.
Oh, all right. Never
Like
mind.
Victor coming from west will stop here. You see the stop bar here? There is stop bar here and stop bar here.
You're at the stop. It looks like
Yes.
3 stop signs you are applying to. Okay, fine. Never mind.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, I guess, I'll just kind of wrap it up. If there's no other comments, I'm thankful that you guys provided us this update. We're a little past our spring start date construction, but I am glad we're starting. My main concern going forward, and I understand the compliance issues. Thanks for the DDOT manual link. I won't be reading that, but you got to understand that the community is going to have questions. They're going to have input. They're going to see things that maybe your team on the ground didn't see, because they're the ones that use the street every day. They walk it every day. They drive it every day. And I want them to still have some options with this project. Now, whether that's realistic or not, maybe so, maybe not. But I want them to have an opportunity to, get those concerns to you guys early. I got another set of concerns from a constituent on the opposite, so Chestnut Street heading towards Rock Creek Park, regarding stop signage. That just seems to make sense to correct it while you're in the midst of this project. So, I hope there is some room for community flexibility as we go throughout the project and wrap this up.
All right, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, do we want to go to the Feed the Family Pantries application now? And then we'll do the DPR? Is that?
Yes,
okay?
please. Yes. You
Okay.
shouldn't be waiting this long.
Yes, okay. And Lisa, are you going to do that one as well?
Yes. Let me see. Judith, could you raise your hand? I got you. So we received recently a grant application submitted by Judith on Feed the Pantry. Judith, are you on? There you go. And I'm going to give her an opportunity to just go over, if you can, Judith, provide the community with an update on your grant application, the mission of the organization, how much you're requesting. So, basically your short presentation to the ANC on that.
Great. Thank you very much.
If I could just note one thing before we begin too, we will not take a vote on this tonight, because under our rules for grants, we have to take the presentation at one meeting and then we can vote on it at the next meeting. So just so that was clear.
Brandy.
Well, good evening, commissioners. Thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce the work of the Feed the Family DC Pantry. It's a new community-driven initiative to fight food insecurity in Ward 3 and other areas of the city. Question we often get is really Ward 3 food insecurity. In the case of this ANC, it's not hard to see. At Regency House at 5201 Connecticut Avenue, all 130 residents are low income. 85% of them are senior citizens and 42% of them are disabled. Our pantry currently provides weekly deliveries of fresh produce to 15 of the residents. We've worked with the management to identify the residents with the greatest need and the least support, which in this case means they depend on the USDA commodity program. There are other less obvious instances of chronic food insecurity in ANC 3-4G. Ward 3 Mutual Aid, with which I've been volunteering for the past 14 months, delivers supplemental food to about 35 households north of Regency House in apartment buildings along the Connecticut Avenue corridor up to Chevy Chase Circle. The pandemic is one reason for the increasing financial and food insecurity in this largely affluent area. In addition, the district government's housing voucher program has provided a mechanism to rehouse many residents into Ward 3 from other district neighborhoods. The program puts a roof over their heads, but in many cases, the new residents lack the family, community, and social service networks that identify resources and provide support to enable them to be successful in their new neighborhood. That's where the Feed the Family DC program and Ward 3 Mutual Aid come in. Last month, we opened only the second weekly food pantry in all of Ward 3. Unlike the pantry at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, which has done a spectacular job of providing shelf-stable food for the past several years, we offer items such as farm fresh fruits and vegetables and cleaning supplies that are expensive and are generally missing from our neighbors' shopping lists, our food insecure neighbors' shopping lists. We're 100% volunteer run, and we depend on individual donations, both monetary and in kind. We've also leveraged contributions from a variety of sources. The University of the District of Columbia has generously donated space in a commercial building in Van Ness, right next to the Metro. Food Rescue US, for whom I also volunteer, has provided food gleaned from farmers markets. And Licking Creek Bend Farm in South Central Pennsylvania has subsidized community-supported agriculture shares of farm fresh produce, which are delivered to the pantry each weekend. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Chevy Chase Safeway and its recently departed manager, Tom Weaver, who made several large donations of cleaning supplies. Each week, we provide about 100 well-balanced bags of fresh fruits and vegetables to our neighbors. Many walk or take public transport to the pantry on Sundays. Our volunteers deliver between 25 and 30 neighbors who have mobility issues, are immunocompromised, or are unable for other reasons to visit the pantry themselves. Among those are the 15 most food insecure residents of Regency House. Because no manager is on duty on Sundays when our pantry is open, and because so many of the residents depend on aides to help prepare their food, we hold 15 produce bags overnight until we can deliver first thing Monday morning. That involves storing produce in ice or cold packs and stowing it in empty spaces in our refrigerators at home in order to decrease the chance of spoilage. We are asking ANC 3-4G for about $1,990 to fund a refrigerator and a cooler at the pantry that would be dedicated to safely storing the Regency House residents' produce from the time it's delivered on Saturday until Monday morning. The investment would go directly to meet the needs of Regency House residents, and it would signal the community's support for its most vulnerable neighbors. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Nani?
Thank you so much, Judith, for your presentation. I have a question, which is, what is the cost difference between a refrigerator that can store the food for 15 families overnight versus if that number were to increase? Would you have to then purchase yet another refrigerator and cooler?
I don't think we would have to purchase another refrigerator. I did some rough calculations looking at, the Home Depot website, and this would be a commercial grade refrigerator. We do have a donated refrigerator and a donated freezer. These are used appliances. We've really been trying to keep our costs down and cobble together the appliances that we can, but we don't anticipate that we would need more. We've also, the number of residents at Regency House is fairly stable. People come and go to rehab and so on, but over the past few weeks, we've found that the 15 bags do the trick, and not all of the food has to be refrigerated.
Thank you.
Randy?
Yeah, I did. We've had difficulties with the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions for some time over grants, and they are especially picky. I don't understand why. We've asked them to give us guidelines on grants, and they have not done it. We asked them 3 years ago for that, and they still haven't done it. But I did run this by Gottlieb Simon, who is the director of the OANC, and he said that while this is an admirable cause, he was concerned that it did not meet the requirements for the DC statute. And his concern was that it did, at 15 people, that was not a broad enough impact. I think that's crazy because it impacts the entire community if we can solve a food insecurity problem for 15 people. That affects our entire community and makes us all, I think, safer and better. But I was listening to the presentation you made, which was very good, by the way. And you talked about some other numbers of people who would be affected by this. Just in order to get this by the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions and get them to approve it, which we have to do, I think you should emphasize a little bit more, perhaps, the numbers of other people who would be impacted by this. And as broad an impact as you can imagine would be helpful. Because we're going to need to justify this to the OANC, and otherwise they take it out of our allotment, and we can't afford to do that. So if you'll just help us out with that, that would be very much appreciated. And we'll continue to work with OANC. As far as they're concerned, it seems that there's no grant that is acceptable, and that's really frustrating for us. But we do appreciate your application, and I think it's an outstanding cause, and we really ought to be supporting it.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Thank you, Judith. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
And I'm definitely looking forward to more numbers.
I'll do my best. Thank you very much, commissioners. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
All right, the next item on the agenda, I think we're skipping over a few things, but let's get straight to the discussion of DPR. And if you could make Cesar Enriquez a panelist, Lisa. And while you're doing that, I'll just give a little bit of background here. We met with Mr. Enriquez, who's the DPR site manager, on May 10th in our meeting. And we asked then for information about DPR's plans for new arrangements with programming instructors. And we asked Mr. Enriquez to advise us of any changes in those procedures for program instructors. On June 24th, last week, Raymond Finkelman, who's an instructor for the community center's fencing program and has been for 40 years, received a specification/work statement for the fencing instruction beginning in September 2020. And he had to complete that by 2 p.m. the following day on the 25th. And this statement of work was substantially different than had been used in the past. And Mr. Finkelman asked a number of questions that he believed he needed to have answered before he could provide a proposed cost for the fencing instruction. But rather than answer Mr. Finkelman's questions, the contracting officer, who's not Mr. Enriquez, by the way, I don't want to blame him for any of this, but the contracting officer responded, "I made the decision based on the government estimate to ask for a cost of service with a turnaround time of less than 48 hours. The procurement was based on price only and did not require any technical information. At this time, we are unable to accommodate your request and make the changes you listed below. The requirements are from DPR and what is required from the contractor vendor to provide and perform services during the period of performance. I then raised some questions about that because it obviously was something that was different from had been done in the past. Mr. Finkelman's appeared before our commission a number of times about the fencing program, which has a really outstanding reputation and has served our community very, very well. And this applies as well to the other programs. It's not just the fencing program, but the ballet program and several others. But when I asked the contracting officer about this, she responded that the district's position at this time is not to discontinue this program, but to continue sourcing for this service. Sourcing would require that other vendor contractors be able to provide a response to the scope of work provided to provide the service. The decision to discontinue is not a contracting officer's decision and will not, to my knowledge, and the decision has not been made by DPR. She says she is solely responding on behalf of the district purchasing agent, the contracting agent, to advise that the changes being required by the vendor cannot be met or accepted at this time. And she said that the agency could request the services, who's requesting the services, DPR, could revise the request. And then I got a response from Mr. Enriquez that said, the DPR Office of the General Counsel advised that the contract as written and executed contains concerns that put the contractor at risk for deficiencies and the agency at risk for audit. And as a result, DPR is revising the contract wording and overall fencing program offerings with the intent to issue an RFP solicitation for the bid in the coming weeks. This has left me pretty confused about what's going on. And we had asked some time ago to get the procedures, the written procedures that DPR is going to implement. And rather than that, we've got some concerned people out there, program instructors who don't know what's going on right now. So if you could give us some explanation, Mr. Enriquez, about where we stand now, what DPR is going to do, not only about the fencing program, but the other programs, so that we can tell our constituents what they can expect from the programs at the community center. And this is all coming up very quickly, of course, because the programs are going to start again in September.
Right. Good evening, commissioners. Yes, and I'll be glad to explain what's going on. Just had a question for you, Commissioner Speck. I sent you, I know it was before this meeting, probably around 7. I sent you an email with a letter that was, I don't know if you got it or not.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. Okay.
It was while I was on this call. So on this meeting. Yeah, because I just got it this evening as well, and I wanted to share with you basically of a statement from our deputy director Gina Toppings, a letter addressing where we stand with the fencing. I could go. Would you like me to share the letter? Would that be okay if I shared that letter, or do you want to go ahead and take time to review it? And I think that should be able to address some of the questions that you have, or how would you like me to proceed? Well, how long is the letter?
It's a 2-pager.
Okay, if you could share it, that would be good. I'll make you a co-host to do that. Okay, you should be able to share it now.
You guys see it?
Not yet.
Okay.
Still can't see it.
Having probably a little bit of technical difficulties. Would you be able to, let me see here, it's coming up. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to do it here on my laptop. Would you be able to share it? It should be in your inbox.
Yeah, I can't share it either effectively, but can you just summarize it?
Sure. So basically, the letter is just stating the reason why the contract was stopped, right? So the fencing contract was on a yearly basis now, and the contract became so when COVID hit we decided to start reviewing multiple programs and contracts to streamline essential costs and understand other obligations in light of the suspense of service. And the fencing was one of the contracts that went under review because it was a contract that was on a yearly basis. And this contract was up for to say if we were going to continue with this contract or not. When we reviewed the contract, we looked at the different activities as far as what was the contract requesting, the type of service that we were requesting, and what type of service we were providing. And we needed somewhere to have be able to measure what the contract was requesting for the contractor to do and what services we were providing. During our findings, we looked at some activities in the contract that were not part of the contract, right? One of the things was the fencing club, right? So the contract stated strictly that we were, the contractor was to serve different type of classes and hours, and we were paid for those hours. When we were used to get the invoices, the club was part of those hours that we were paying that was not part of the contract. Now, this I understand was going on for years, where at that time, I believe different site managers were just approving that contract and the contract was going on a yearly basis. When COVID hit again, we went under the contract and we started reviewing saying, hey, what measurements are we taking to make sure that the contractor is fulfilling all the obligations in the contract? And when we started realizing that we have a system called RecTrack where we have all the participants that are registered into that class, and the days and the times is what basically is a way to measure that contract. We were not getting the numbers that we were that the contract we requested. Reason why is that most of these individuals were just going into the private part of the club, and the contractor was actually registering the participants into DPR to offset the cost, and sometimes the additional fees the contractor was using for different things for his club, not basically not having the complete 100% of the fees charged come to DPR. So basically, in a way, we were paying for this contract, and the contractor was still using additional funds that he was charging the members to, yes, for the use for, equipment and traveling expenses and all this other stuff, but that was not part of the contract, right? So when we reviewed this, we were measuring, hey, if we're paying so much in a yearly basis, is this contract actually meeting what we were requesting? We figured out that it wasn't. So this is where all this came into play, saying, hey, we need to make sure that we have a better way of measuring the level of service that we're requesting on this contract. It's not that we want to end this contract. It's just that we want to make sure that it's a win-win situation for the DC government and also for the contractor, right? So that's the reason why. So just to be clear, the fencing was not on the contract right now. The contract was over on September 30th, 2020. And we had the option to renew the contract or not. So this is when the review of the contract came in play, and we found those findings. So what we want to do is to make sure that it's a win-win situation, and we want to make sure that you guys understand, and also the community understand, that fencing is something that we want to keep at Chevy Chase, and also make it grow to different centers as well, right? Just to make sure that we are, again, it's a win-win situation for DC government and also for the contractor.
Okay, I understand it a little bit better now, why you were communicating with the fencing group the way you were, but it sounds like you need to sit down directly with Mr. Finkelman and try to work this out. And I don't think we need to do that in our meeting tonight, but can you commit that DPR will sit down face to face or in a Zoom meeting or something with Mr. Finkelman to try to work this out? Because this is a valuable program for our community and we don't want to see it go. And Mr. Finkelman has done a really terrific job organizing this program for 40 years. And it would be a shame to lose that expertise and experience. So will DPR do that?
Yeah, no, you have my full commitment that we are going to reach out to Mr. Finkelman to make sure that we are on the same page and he understands when we offer this contract that the scope of work is met, right? And that we have different ways of measuring that scope of work to make sure that, hey, that he is getting compensated for the service that we are requesting. Nothing extra, nothing less.
Yeah, well, I agree. You want to be able to do that, but sending him a news statement of work and asking for a response within 24 hours was not reasonable.
Yeah,
and I agree with that.
I do agree with that, and it, again, you have my full commitment to make sure that I spearhead this, and I'll reach out to Mr. Finkelman tomorrow, and maybe we could sit down as early as tomorrow and work something out. Because we are trying to have these classes as early as this summer as well.
Okay, now does this readjustment or this new look at these contracts apply to the ballet class as well?
No, I'm not familiar with the ballet contract yet because that's under review as well. But the one that stuck out was the fencing one.
Okay. So I hope you will reach out to each of these instructors who've been very loyal to the community and the community center, the DPR, for so many years, and work with them to try to arrange to continue these programs. We really want them to continue, and we think that's important for our community.
I agree.
Okay. Before I've got a couple of other things I need to talk to Mr. Enriquez about, but Connie, or I think Peter had his hand up first. Peter?
Mr. Enriquez, a question and a comment. For the year prior to September of 2020, how big a contract was this?
I don't have an exact amount, but it was over $50,000.
Well, I'll just point out that opening the community center and getting things started again is an important thing to do. And while I understand that in this hiatus, you took the opportunity to do these reviews, moving this quickly so we have a fully operating community center and we're back is a real public good and shouldn't be tainted by long bureaucratic processes that stall out programs that apparently people in the community use. I did not know we had a fencing program. I'm a freshman commissioner. And I hope this is not repeated with all the other classes that, or if it is repeated and you do this contract review, you do it quickly.
Yes, I agree. And we do have our sports and health office reviewing all contracts, and we are moving. In different centers, we are moving, we are revisiting this contract, and we are getting the contractors to re-sign with us with the fair contract. And again, Chevy Chase is very unique with these contracts because it's been years that the contracts just were being renewed without having somebody actually reviewing the contract. And one good thing about COVID is that it helped us realize what contracts we were issuing.
Okay, Connie? You're muted.
I know. I just turned it on. I turned it on. I guess my point that I'd like to make is that this entire time over the last 2 months, there's been tremendous confusion. We were first told that contracts are going to be different. And then now there's been a negotiation on a contract. There's something going on with DPR and communications. people are left hanging, and I think there's got to be a better way. So if you had been under review since last fall, I think that's something that the ANC should have been made aware of. And I think that if you were going to go through a review, I think all of the people who had been participating over the years should know what that review is. I think with Mr. Finkelman's situation, which I don't think we should talk about in detail right here, to be given an SOW and then to be told to do this the next day without understanding the background, I think is very wrong. And it should not happen again. So I expect DPR to have a statement of some kind to the community so that people are aware of why it's been so delayed, why we were getting different messages, and what's really happening now. We need that, I think, because people are waiting, and people, I mean, if you look at the chat, maybe you can't see it because it's to the panelists, but like, what are the hours going to be at CCCC? You know, our evening program is going to begin. These are all questions that that they need answers to. And I read that email exchange, and there is no way that a potential contractor should have been communicated with in that way. It was just, it was beyond understanding, frankly. It's just not the way to go. So that's my only remark. And it really isn't pointed to you, Caesar, it's really pointed to the agency. So I'm hoping that that gets passed forward. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
go ahead, Caesar.
Sorry. Yeah, and I just wanted to say to the commissioners, no, I understand, and I do agree with everything that you're saying, and I'll do everything in my power with all my centers to make sure that, you know, we do things the right way, right? And this is a start, getting these type of communications, these letters, letting all the stakeholders know of what's going on before we make any decisions is the best way to do it. And you have my commitment to make sure that that happens moving forward with all my centers.
I appreciate that. And I think if we had had it earlier, we might have just invited everyone into a meeting where people could ask you questions, those who have participated in the past and wish to continue in the future, versus the one-to-one, one-by-one experience that people are having it's just confusing. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm sorry I don't know your name, but
yes.
from the
my name is Reagan, and I am representing the Ballet Club at Chevy Chase, which has been in effect for over 15 years. The ballet mistress is Lynn B. Welters, and she had been a contractor for over 15 years with DPR. Even though ballet is a sport as well as an art, DPR had put ballet under cultural arts, and so ballet contracts were linked alongside for Ms. Welters with pottery, which is and not put under sports for DPR. And I would like the ANC to know that DPR ceased offering any contracts at Chevy Chase Community Center at all for the cultural arts, which includes pottery and ballet. Well over a year and a half, well, almost 2 years ago, they just refused to offer contracts. And so Ms. Welters continued to teach without a contract, which, and so did the pottery teacher. But I wanted to let the commissioners know that the Chevy Chase Ballet Club is still in action. We are still teaching ballet in Chevy Chase, despite not having access to the community center. But no one has reached out to us. We've even put together a movie of what the dancers have done to show at the Avalon, and we are just waiting for DPR to reach out to us. So we have a lot of respect for fencing and for Mr. Finkelman. Ballet and fencing are very much linked. Ballet came from fencing. So I'm just putting in I thought you should know that the ballet has not received a contract at all for 2 years, and DPR made a decision to no longer do those contracts at Chevy Chase. And so it's been difficult for the cultural arts at Chevy Chase Community Center.
Thank you, Reagan. We appreciate that. Lisa?
Yes, I have a question for Caesar. Caesar, given what she said, what is a community process? And this is, I'm new on the commission as well. What is the community input process prior to canceling out contracts that have been long-standing at a particular community recreation center? So with the example of ballet that it's been there for so many years to not be offered a contract, clearly there's a community need. Can you just explain that to me, how DPR makes that decision and what the community input is?
Sure. To my knowledge, and I just joined DPR about a year and a few months, so I inherit this. The questions that I asked is like, hey, the reasons behind not having contracts. So what DPR decided to do before I got here was move away from the contracts and go through the permit process. They basically saying, hey, we have these spaces allowed for you, especially for like ballet or pottery, which are very unique. Like you can't use those rooms for, I mean, at least pottery for other activities. Ballet, you can probably do some multi-purpose activities, meetings and stuff like that. But like they did, DPR decided to go ahead and say, hey, we'll go ahead and still provide your classes. You can apply for a permit and basically run it as your own business, right? And which, going back to fencing, was a way that they wanted to also, that we wanted to move towards, saying, hey, we understand that, it's a business that you're running. We'll allow you to still hold your classes in our centers. We'll charge you for the first year basically a zero fee to permit this out. And we'll revisit within a year to see, hey, if we were to charge you an hourly layer of like $5 or $15 or $20, depending on what the situation is with the contractor as well, to make sure that those classes continue without offering a contract. Basically, the contractor would be able to take the fee to run that business in our center, which right now we do for sports as well, like for soccer camps or basketball leagues, where people apply for a permit. We give them either the space indoors or outdoors. They charge their own fees, and we only collect the fee for the permit.
Well, Cesar, you explained that once before to us, I think back in May when you came, and you said that that was going to be the new procedure. And you promised that you would also give us a written procedure or written process. That we've never gotten that. If that's DPR's procedure, then we'd like to see it in writing.
And this is a process that is not for all, right? It's just a process that we have in place, which I am also waiting for that process to be in paper, that I can share that with you guys as well. And I'll follow up again to make sure that we have that process, and I can have a process in writing that I can let you know what the process is as far as what a contract is and why are we moving, like, let's say a pottery or a ballet towards that permit process approach.
Reagan, did you want to respond to that?
I put Reagan back on, Randy, just because she had put in the chat. I really want to hear what Reagan has to say on this, because she said there were yeah. You're on mute, Reagan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I understand what Cesar was saying and that he has inherited this process. So perhaps he may be unaware of the great protests made by the ballet contractor and the pottery contractor when they were denied contracts after so many years of teaching with a contract, and the explanation given. And in fact, this did spill into sports also, because Mr. Finkelman was required to do the same thing. DPR decided to change the way that they did things without much of a clear explanation to the contractors. And they insisted that Ms. Welters and Mr. Finkelman and the pottery instructor, the piano instructor should purchase business licenses and then provide them for the purpose of these permits that Cesar is explaining. It is incredible to expect the same quality of services that the contractors have been providing without providing them with the protection of a contract. It allows DPR to walk over contractors they actually, once we paid for the business licenses and submitted them, they didn't even use them. They then they asked Ms. Welters to teach the classes, which she continued to teach, and they paid her through PayPal, and they paid her the same rate, but there's still there are no clear guidelines, and the fact that we were forced to purchase these business licenses for these permits that never were properly issued. It is, again, I understand Cesar is saying that he has inherited it, but nonetheless, the ballet program still persists. Much of it is voluntary so that we can keep these kids in Ward 3G and 4 to keep taking ballet classes so that they can keep competing to get into places like Washington Ballet, et cetera. But DPR has not at all, the removal of contracts and refusal to offer contracts for ballet and pottery. And again, ballet and pottery are very different. Ballet is a sport after a certain age has really been without any rhyme or reason. It's been terrible.
Connie?
Okay, so after hearing all of this, I think that we need to go up a chain and ask for a presentation because I can't hear anymore. This is so bad. I am extremely unhappy about the situation for all of the teachers, instructors who've been loyal to our community residents through all these years to be treated in this way. And I still don't understand what's going on. I don't think that people should be asked to apply for business licenses and then not be issued a permit and then be paid over PayPal. I mean, if the reasoning is they're looking at contracts to make sure that we're not overpaying, making sure that things are okay financially, I get that, but this doesn't sound like that now. So something is going on and I don't feel comfortable, and I would like to invite I'm sorry, Cesar, someone that's above you who was longer standing, maybe 3 people, whoever, to come and really explain. And I think, yeah, and I think it's actually not just us. I'm sure that if this is going on, other ANCs must be faced with the same thing. And frankly, this is unacceptable. I mean, because it is just, it's beyond my comprehension. I don't understand what's happening. So we need a straightforward answer. And every time we hear from these amazing instructors, it makes me sad because they could walk away and then what's going to happen? This is just wrong. So
I did copy Director Hunter on the emails that I sent, and I asked specifically for Director Hunter to be at this meeting. But it was very short notice, so I can understand why he couldn't be here.
We need to draft a resolution. We need something. We need something that's in writing, but we'll talk about that.
We can write a letter, but
yeah, something.
I think we need to ask the director or his senior deputy. Peter?
I'm just piling on to agreeing with Connie and Lisa. Cesar, I think the message you need to take back to DPR is that from the point of view of the community, this is our community center. And these people have served our community well. And we need to reopen the community center. And instead of getting a reopening, and what we're getting is a bureaucratic runaround. And these poor people who are doing this largely out of the goodness or substantially out of the goodness of their heart are being mistreated. And I understand that there's a balance here between the municipal interest and the community interest, but why have community centers if they don't serve the community? And I agree with Connie. We need this. This sounds like it's above your pay grade, Cesar, and it sounds like we need to get to the bottom of it. Or that community center, which is a physical problem to begin with, is not even going to be a useful social institution for us. So I hope that by next meeting we have some sort of resolution, or we have the director here.
Michael?
I just say, Randy, Cesar, you've been beaten up enough. I've got.
Yeah, I agree.
Say you're doing the best you can under the circumstances, and we need to address the people who are decision makers. So Randy, the only thing I wanted to suggest is that in writing this letter, we should make sure that we also incorporate the new rec center and what the programming units will be there, and also the tennis courts, because the same thing is going on there with permits to use it, and there's some DPR classes, and then there's private people teaching classes there and occupied classes. So we have to really look at this more holistically than just the community center and these two classes, because this is
Right.
more prevalent problem. And that's why we have to let Caesar be off the hook for now, and we need to take it to the next.
Yeah, I'll let him off the hook for this issue, but what I would like to ask him though is what the community center status is going to be over the remainder of the summer, especially what the hours are going to be. We've gotten a lot of questions from people about use of space for the Scrabble Club, for instance, or for the telescope making club, and a lot of other things like that have been using the community center for years in the evenings. And will the community center be open for those kinds of evening meetings over the summer?
Yeah, so today was the first day of summer for us. Camp started at across the city. So now at Chevy Chase, so what we're doing is we are open for camp only from Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. I'm sorry, from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we are opening the center from 6 to 8 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays for community hour. So if people wanted to come in and play Scrabble or board games, we have the big multi-purpose room or the auditorium set up with tables, social distancing with chairs. The people are welcome to come to our centers. And again, it's on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 8.
So when are we going to get to normal hours? Until 9 o'clock or 9:30 and 5 or 6 days a week.
Or weekends also. Why is there no weekend?
Well, we've never had Sunday. It's never been open on Sundays, but Saturdays had
correct.
First from 9 until 6, I think, or 5:30.
But what he just said, Randy, was that it's only open.
I realize that,
Sunday
yeah.
to Friday.
Yeah, so we were asked as site managers to come up with 2 days during the week for community hours, having people come in. Again, Chevy Chase is very unique because we don't have a fitness room and we don't have a open gym, so we're just opening the multi-purpose room, the big room where where you guys host your meetings for community hours for those 2 hours. We are looking into opening on Saturdays because we also want fencing to come back, and fencing is big on Saturdays. So we wanted to go ahead and kind of, if we have fencing back in our buildings, to also open on Saturdays for community hours. Now, as far as regular hours, regular process, is leaning more towards the end of the summer for the fall.
Okay. All right, it's helpful to at least have those parameters, but we do want to return to full service as quickly as possible. That's really important.
We do as well. We do as well.
All right. Any other questions for Caesar? Okay, Caesar, thank you very much, and we apologize for beating up on you if we did.
No, not at all. And I'll make sure that I draft an email myself to my superiors about what the major concerns are, and just giving them also a heads up to let them know, hey, that they should be expecting a letter, and so we could get this meeting hopefully soon.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Randy, you would have to, I think I got thrown off as co-host again.
Oh, you did? Huh. Okay, let me put you back on here. You're listed here as co-host.
It seems like after someone else presents, something changes.
Well, I don't know. Let me just see if this works.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I just had to get Caesar out and then you came. So, all right. The next item on the agenda, going back to the beginning of the agenda, was the report on the small area plan process from Connie and from Peter. You guys want to do that now?
So I can start, I guess. The Office of Planning's visioning survey, I guess, closed on Thursday, June 24th. And a few days prior to that, they said they had close to about 600 responses, but I'm not sure if they've got how many more they got toward the very end. All the workshops, the visioning workshops that took place June 5th, 8th, 10th, and 11th, I believe, were completed. And now they are in this phase where they're going to collect all the responses from the survey, collect all the feedback they received during the 2-hour workshops across those 4 days, as well as emails they received after people submitted their surveys when they felt like they needed to add more of their thoughts. So they're going to do that. And they will come back on July 26th meeting, our last meeting in July. The OP Erican Osberg will come and report out what has occurred, what's going to occur during the summer months with them collating everything. And the second thing is the CAC, the Community Advisory Committee, will be holding their 4th meeting on July 7th. And after that meeting, those notes, summary notes, are posted on the project website, which is publicinput.com/Chevy Chase. And then I'm going to turn it over to Peter, and then I want to come back to some things I want to say about my resolution and the information exchange. So Peter, are you ready? I'll go over to you. But the one last thing I do want to say is that after they collect all these responses, they're going to, OP has told us they're going to go into a design charrette, which is to take some of the ideas that came out of the visioning exercises and try to visualize it. And I think that they have a contractor to help them do that, but we don't know the details yet.
Peter, you're on mute.
So on my side of the equation, I've continued to press to see if we could implement our April 26 resolution to sponsor town meeting-like community forums. Because of the on-again, off-again conversations with OP and Josh Lasky and his colleagues at Link, that got pushed off until after the visioning workshops. And though there seems to be some agreement now that Lasky and his colleagues will facilitate at least one community forum, the time was simply too short to get real attendance at it before July 4th. That was not just because of the delay in making a decision. It was also because in canvassing my single member district, it's clear there's a fair amount of discouragement about this whole process. Now, my great hope, so where we are now is that this committee, which we formed at our last meeting of Randy, Connie, Lisa, and I, we are to meet with OP again on Wednesday at 4:30, working towards a forum and I hope a series of forums in the fall. It would help immensely if, among other things, OP would agree that we have the fall to run. They have not yet changed their timeline on the small area plan website, but we'll take these issues up on Wednesday. So I have sent around for edits from the group of us meeting with OP, but also for the information of the two commissioners who aren't immediately in on this process, a memo, a short memo today, sort of trying to start to set the framework for how we start thinking about these forums in the fall. I'm finished. John.
Yeah, Peter, you touched on this, saying that, they're going to give us some leeway in the fall, but I think Connie or Randy mentioned about the design charrettes. Are the design charrettes going to get ahead of our process for getting ANC feedback?
So this is my opinion, not this group's opinion and so forth. I'm torn about whether the charrettes and the first of the forums could be one thing. I think that the charrettes need to be, OP presenting what, they've sort of, the way they envision pulling this, all the feedback that they have gotten into like proposals for the built environment. I think one of the things about the forum is that because so many of the ways in which residents have been able to engage in this process have been packaged so that they're sort of limited. It's sort of predetermined. There's a lot of run up to actually people being able to speak. That I'm concerned about marrying the two. But I think the reality is, John, that OP is going to run their process kind of sort of matter what. And we're going to, if we can just get their assistance in doing these forums, they will either prove useful or they won't prove useful. But I'm concerned about combining them. And I don't think that OP will will have any of it. But this is my view. The others on the who met with them can have their say too.
Yeah, just one more comment. If the design charrettes work as I think they're supposed to work, the end result would be maybe some either two-dimensional or three-dimensional displays or cityscapes, but miniature cityscapes. Yes. So that people could visualize, whether we're going to have 5-story buildings or 3-story buildings or whatever. I think I had a conversation with Randy about this, with computer-aided design, you can click a button and you can make a 1-story building into a 4-story building. So I would hope that those charrettes actually will give a physical representation of what the possibilities are. That could be helpful. We just don't want to make sure they prejudice the outcome.
Yeah, that is the purpose of the charrette.
Yeah, and frankly, I think that I mean this is not how I would have liked to see the process go, but it could be that there has been a certain quality of the conversation to date that's sort of abstract. I mean, the initial question after what we liked and what we thought needed to change about Chevy Chase was what we thought about the concept of equity. I mean, getting down to like building this big, but not this big and not this small kind of gets you down to cases, and that might, bring the conversation into a little more of a focus, whether that conversation is in the charrette or a charrette forum or a charrette and separately a forum. It could be that we finally, get a process that's more where people's attention is more focused come fall.
Because it fits in at this point in the discussion, before you come back to it, Connie, I had a presentation today from Citizen Lab, which is the company that I had suggested 3 years ago that the Office of OANC should contract with for interaction with the community. And that was the $100,000 that was appropriated to the OANC. The OANC has never spent. That's still in its budget. Gottlieb was on this call today, first time he'd ever done it, despite the fact that I had suggested it 3 years ago. And it was remarkable to me to hear what these guys are doing now. They've improved the product considerably since I proposed it 3 years ago. And it would have been a godsend if we'd had that at the beginning of this small area planning process, because it would do everything that we've been wanting to do, to be able to pull people together and let people communicate with each other. It would have changed the whole dynamic if we'd had that. So I really pushed hard to get Gottlieb to pay attention to this. And I don't know whether he will or not, but it's the kind of tool that would give us the thing Michael's suggested from the beginning. How do we communicate with our constituents? How do we hear back from them? How do we organize all of that into a way that we can actually understand it and make recommendations based on that? It really does. It's a wonderful tool. And what I asked at the end of it, I said, well, we should have recorded this Zoom meeting, and we didn't. But I want all of you to have the benefit of listening to what's available out there. And we've got to start pushing the district and the OANC to provide these kinds of tools to ANCs across the district. And the cost is not outrageous. It's reasonable. It's the kind of thing we could do, and easily. And we are missing out by not having those tools that will help us in precisely the situation that you're describing, Peter.
Randy, so the 100,000 is gone, right?
No, it's still there. It's just sitting there.
Possibility that over the summer we could get since I've not been privy to the way this conversation worked, is there any possibility of tapping into this resource before? Because if we don't tap into it, Lisa and Connie and I and you are going to have to figure out how we jury rig MailChimp.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can't do it in this, because it would be tailored just to us, and he's not going to do that. He's not going to do something just for ANC 34G. It's got to be something that broader than that. So, so I don't think we can tap that $100,000. But it just really frustrates me that we have gone this long and don't have modern tools like this that are being used in other cities. When I talked to them 3 years ago, they didn't have anything in the United States. Now they've got Seattle, they've got several other smaller cities. This is the kind of thing modern governments should be doing. And it gives us a way to communicate. OP would have benefited from this. It's really a valuable tool that we're missing out on. So enough said. I will arrange for the guy who made the presentation today, the demo, said, by all means, have other commissioners who want to hear this, I'll do another demo for them. And so I think we should do that.
Would they do a miniature version pro bono to show off the abilities of it? Look, the alternative is going to be, we are going to do an immense amount of grunt work to get a jury-rigged process.
Yeah, it's not the kind of thing you can just turn on and off either. You've got to have some training. You've got to. It's not a difficult system to operate, and it's one that you can do without being a skilled technician. But you can't just do it overnight either. So the ramp up period, I think they said, is about 2 months.
July and August.
Well,
About 2 months away.
And we don't have the funding to do it from OANC. We can't get.
We're in fine shape.
Anyway, okay, Connie.
Okay, well, because we have this sort of lull as as OP is trying to collate all of these responses and get through it, I've been talking to some people to try to figure out how do we get some of these design elements that we hope for, which is what design, meaning we've heard a lot. I sat in on 2 of those visioning workshops, and a lot of people were saying, like, we don't want, big retail chains. We don't want to see this or that, right? And so I followed through. Commissioner Fromboludi mentioned something to me a few weeks back, and I just had a conversation with Ellen McCarthy, who's a member of the CAC. And I asked her about neighborhood commercial overlays. Okay, these are NCOs. This is in the zoning book. And Cleveland Park and other districts have done this. So I asked her, what is this? And is this something that we can do? Now, when I looked at the overlays, it gives you very specifics of, like, in this part, like there's a base zoning, and then for these parts of it, this is what the design we'd like. Okay, so like if you're getting a lot of a certain kind of business and you don't want that, too many of that, you can then overlay certain requirements that make it less likely those businesses would come. All right, so she said that in 2016, when they were looking at all the zoning, they changed it, meaning they, OP decided that they didn't want to go and do the overlay, and instead they wanted to make zoning differences. And after 5 years, they found that these zoning differences, like if you go to MU4 to MU27, in the past, it used to be like 5 is more dense than 4, but now it's like, it doesn't make any sense. So it seems like OP is going back to overlays. And overlays, I think, would help they would help us, our community, but also be able to add it into the small area plan. So going back to the information exchange, this resolution, I would like to bring some of the people who've worked on it and to bring the design review team at OP and others to talk to our community about what does it mean? How did these other districts do it? And what does it mean to do that? And how would we be able to include it in our small area plan in order to address some of these needs and concerns? So I just wanted to bring this up. I think ANC can take a leadership role. And I have some names of people who we can approach to see how we can make this happen, so that we can feel like the community's input is really a part of what's going to result. Because what we've heard is we understand that you don't want this, we understand that, but we don't know the mechanism. So I don't know if a plan, when there's a development project, how that works. And I think the overlay, the NCO, offers a little bit more kind of like more of a stronger grip. And so I want to investigate that, and I wanted to share that with you because it's a lull. I think that it's information exchange, which doesn't require really everyone to be in a big room. It'll be recorded. People who can make it, and then the recording will be shared with everyone else. And then I thought maybe there's a way that if people had more questions, we can then have some of the panelists then address some of those questions later, but we'll figure out the mechanism. So I just wanted to bring that up as one possibility. And then some other ideas I have about, like, Peter has brought this up too, and I'm certainly concerned because it's in my single member district, if we were to build in the community center and the public library, what does it mean in terms of the surrounding, residents? I would like to have, a talk where other cities have done this and the kinds of buffers they've used, even in our own city, so that we can show people what can happen so we can accommodate people's needs and concerns. And that's something else that we haven't talked about. That's why I'm bringing this up, other than some of the other kind of like, what does it mean? What is a PUD? What is matter of right? What are those sort of basic things? These are some ideas that I think we should investigate. So I would like to put that forward in a piece of paper. We've talked about this a few times ago, where we can see, and then we can talk about it, and we can, at the next meeting, July 12th, I could maybe share it with the community at that point if we're ready. And put some dates, on the table. So thank you.
All right. Anything else on the small area plan? Okay, Lisa, you want to talk about the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee and the letter we've drafted for MPD?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for everyone that's still on the line. It has been a long night, but this is a good topic. The Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee met on June 15th, and we had pretty full agenda. One of the things that we are still working on is drafting our mission statement. I would say we're probably 90% there. And hopefully by our next meeting, which will be on July 20th, we'll have a full mission statement to present to the ANC. We still have also a subcommittee or small group of participants that are working on organizational structure for the standing committee. And I know they met a couple of times since that meeting. We also had a presentation from a committee member, Maurice, on implementation of the task force on racism recommendations. He did an excellent PowerPoint for us that kind of summarized some recommendations that he thought that we should prioritize. And we asked the group to go back to take a look at that presentation, as well as the other recommendations that were listed in the standing or the 3 individual committees that comprise the task force on racism, to see if we could prioritize them as a group. So we're still working on that. One of the things that we did complete is a letter to actually our council members, and it's actually addressed to the council members. So Council Member Mary Che, Janice Lewis George, and Brooke Pinto. And it's copied to the mayor, deputy mayor for public safety and justice, the council members, so the rest of the council members, Chief Conti, Commander Bedline, the commissioners, and the other members of the task force on racism. And it is basically our request to establish or to hold a meeting to discuss the disparity in statistics on non-vehicle traffic stops with Black people in second district area. I believe I mentioned it prior, but just to recap, the statistics highlighted in the report. And this report, so the statistics were basically published in the DC Police Reform Commission's report. And that report was issued on April 1st and presented to the council. And inside that report, they had a statistical section that highlighted all police districts in DC and the number of or percentage of traffic, non-traffic stops, the percentage of Blacks that were in that, subject to those stops, and that percentage of population within the police district. So with second district, and this data was for a 17-month period from July 22nd, 2019 to December 31st, 2020, Black people comprise 64.5% of non-traffic related stops. And the report indicated that Black people comprised only 7.5% of the population of second district. So in our letter, we basically say that we find this to be a glaring and concerning disparity based on the percentage of population that Blacks comprise within second district. And we're concerned that it's pretextual and definitely over policing of the community. We cite an ACLU report that pretty much is citing the same statistic, a little different in the time frame. And we basically asked them to meet with us to address this and to have an ongoing relationship with the council members and MPD to look to resolve this issue. So going through the draft letter, I see there's one area that I have to correct. And it's, I believe, the second paragraph, and I say this this statistic is a glaring and concerning. It should be disparity. I'm not sure how something happened on that. It says dispace, so I'm going to correct that. Other than that, the race committee has looked at this letter. We had a long chain of edits from the race committee. Then it went on to the ANC. We had a few changes on the ANC. And I think it's good to go. I think it's ready to go. So at this point, I put a motion on the table that the ANC approve the letter for dissemination to the council members and the political leader CC on the attachment.
I second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay.
Take a vote.
I think, Lisa, I sent you my comments, which were that we need to get beyond the wordsmithing and just get it out and hear a response.
Yes, and I think we did. I did edit, and I talked to Peter. Peter, thanks for giving me a call on it. I talked to Peter on a comment regarding that section that was that question, and I put, I think I clarified it enough that hopefully both sides are satisfied with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine too, but as I said, I think what we need now is a response.
I agree.
Yep.
And like I said, they will get this. They'll get it.
Can I just ask one quick question? Why these three council members?
I can't hear you. Oh, why these three?
Yeah.
They are in the second district space.
Oh,
So they're all, and you know, that's a really good question. Huh?
Not like a committee assignment thing.
No.
Over there.
And as a matter of fact, the chair of the committee that oversees MPD is Charles Allen. That's why I put, you know, other council members, you know, or DC council members on here, because they will all get a copy of this. But those three specifically sit within the second district boundaries. And we did, or I did meet with Mary Chase staff and Janice Lewis George's staff. And it was my oversight to not call out and reach out to Brooke Pinto staff, but I will definitely do that. But she also has a very large chunk of 2D.
Okay, if no other questions or comments, take a vote. All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, I think we are now, because we're going to postpone the discussion about our future meeting procedures and until the July 12th meeting. I think we're ready for commission business. The first is the minutes for the June 14th meeting. Peter has circulated the revised version of those that have been edited by various commissioners. Any further changes need to be made? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the minutes?
Move it, second it, move.
Okay. All right, 6-0. And John, you have checks to be approved?
Yes, I do. I have a check for DOES for $14.73 for unemployment insurance, another DOES check for $4.17 for the paid family leave, a check to the federal government for $10.28 for our quarterly 941 FICA payment, a check to Verizon for $156.44, and I'm asking for a personal reimbursement of $44 for postage and some forms I had to purchase related to our filing for our IRS 1040 last year. So those are the one thing to I'll send you a note on this, Peter. I'll sum it all up. One thing to note, I'm beginning to get my head above water, I think, a little bit on this stuff. I'm into the DOES web portal, which has a lot of information on our payments to them, so I'm getting used to that. I have managed to get a $200 abatement of a penalty from last year. And I'm seeking for another $200 one for that's for the UI, and I'm trying to get another one for the paid family leave. The person who handled the UI was very courteous. That worked out very professional. That worked out, and I'm just hoping the PFL will work out the same way. So I don't know what the odds are, but we'll keep giving it a shot.
Right.
So there we are.
You're earning your pay, John.
You really are.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Okay.
Randy,
I would move that these expenses be approved.
All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, for our July 12th meeting, we're again going to have I suspect, a very full agenda. Reports on the small area plan and the Regional Social Equity Standing Committee, of course. Then we'll have presentations. This has been delayed for some time, but from the Veterans Advisory Board, I hope that we're still going to be able to do that, John.
We're set up. Yeah, we're set up. We have. I've been in touch with the person, and he's agreed on the 12th.
Okay. Then we've got a presentation from the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking on COVID-19 scams. Then a presentation from the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles. And finally, a vote on the Feed the Family Pantries application for a grant. I'm still going to continue to work with Gottlieb to make sure that's going to be okay. And then we'll have a discussion about the item that we postponed from this meeting, and that is the how we're going to conduct our future meetings, whether we're going to have hybrid meetings and how we're going to do that, and where.
Well, it sounds like the community center is not open, right? So until September.
Well, at our last meeting, I mean, we didn't clarify that with Caesar, but at our last meeting, he said we could have met tonight at the community center.
I know, but I don't think that's right.
Still,
Yeah.
we're still unsure about the, maybe we could have physically gone there, but we're still concerned about the telecommunications.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But
anyway,
you got a long way to go there. But physically we could have met there. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as we can continue to meet virtually, we should continue to do that until we have a better sense of what our arrangement's going to be. But I mean, we'll discuss that at our next meeting.
Randy, one other thing is, I don't know if I'll be ready by July 12th because I just don't know. But you sent me that email about the historic designation, so I'll let you know.
Yeah.
What the
chances are that the Historic Preservation Office is not going to hear that until September, some way down the road, probably.
Okay, well, I just didn't know what you want me to do, what the timeline of what you wanted me to do about that was.
If we could hear it on the 26th, that probably would be better from a standpoint of the agenda.
But what you just said is that they're not going to get to it till September? They're not going to?
Probably not. I mean, it usually takes several months to get on their calendar at the Historic Preservation Office. So but we should key out when we're going to hear it based on when they're going to hold their hearing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll try to. You sent me a note about it.
Right.
I don't remember if in the note you gave me the name of a person to contact there or not.
I don't. I didn't. I can.
If you would, that'd be great. Then I can. I mean, we can see what the timeline is for that.
Right. Okay.
And I'll report. What can I just say one thing while I'm talking, which is that again this Saturday I went out to the farmers market to meet constituents, and I suggested earlier that we set up a table and that we rotate once, every Saturday for a few hours out there. I still think we should do that. The summer months it was pretty full, at least in the early part of the morning. And so I'd like us to think about doing that because Randy, to the point that you made about my beating the dead horse about knowing who's in our SMD, then communicate. If we at least had a table and we had a piece of paper, people could literally write their name and contact information, we can start building a database for it.
Yep.
Randy, do we have a table banner that says ANC 3?
We sure do. We sure do. We put it up at every one of our meetings. We don't have a table.
Okay.
We do not have a table.
Oh, we're ready to march in a parade. If there's any parade, we can march.
And you know, once upon a time we did. I can remember walking in that parade.
Well, I signed up to walk in that parade
Well,
today.
you be at one and I'll be at the other, Michael. So, you know,
So Randy, when do we get the banner? If I want to go, I don't know if I'll be out there this Saturday or not, but it would have been nice to have the banner because.
The banner is in the office, in our ANC office.
That could be a problem.
How does one?
Can't
retrieve
get
it?
in the
office. We don't have
You're gonna
keys.
have to bash the door down. I'll check with the office there and Stephanie.
Stephanie's supposed to be in there tomorrow.
Should have asked Caesar tonight about that.
Stephanie's supposed to be in the office tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be good to know. And John, if you are going over there or anything, just pick it up and I'll pick it up from your place at Millwood.
Okay,
Michael,
I'll-
did you ask the market if they'll set you aside a space?
You need to,
You have to, you did, they said yes?
Yeah, but where it is, can you picture what the market looks like?
Yeah, yeah.
So on whatever that street is, Morrison, what's the intersection?
It's Northampton.
Northampton. So right on Northampton, there's a big farm stand that faces Northampton.
Yeah.
So right across from that, there's a cutout where we can set up the table right there, and you get all the people that come down Northampton, or we could do it sort of on the Broad Branch side of the market near where the entrance is. So either place is fine. And she's happy to have us there.
We have been on this meeting so long, my AirPod just cut out one of the ears.
well, it's been a long time.
But it's been fun.
It was
Okay.
fully charged when I started.
All right. Thank you all, and for all of those who stayed to the bitter end.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay,
All 5 of them.
including
Come on.
Steph. Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.